Welcome to the 109th episode of the Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast.
So damn paranormal.
My name is Jason Knight, host of the show, and with me, as always, is
Oscar Spector,
producer extraordinaire and podcast co-host. Also joining us this evening is
Lexi Raven,
podcast co-host, and occasional commentator.
Yes, that fits very well.
I would have called her.
Works, right?
I would have called her professional bystander.
That works.
Professional
that works too.
bystander.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, right.
And with us is
That means talk, honey.
Oh,
The little pointing to your face means talk.
Lexi Raven.
Also, don't choke it like it's coming either. Don't choke the mic like that.
Don't choke the mic.
Don't.
no choking the mic, no penises.
I mean,
And I snorted as well.
yeah. We all
So-
heard.
Here we are, episode 109. Finally, we're back on the mics. It's not a Skype release, thank God.
Right.
What did you think of releasing the first episode that we ever did 2 weeks ago?
Fuck, I already forgot we did that.
We did.
Threw me off. Like,
God,
what did I think of what? What is he asking me?
I needed a break.
My brain was running through all these, like, what did we did? What did we do?
Yeah, I needed a break.
Yeah, we had we did the intro ourselves, and then right, that's what it was. We did the intro,
That's
and
right.
then we introduced the show.
That's right.
Right, and well, I didn't listen to it myself, but
Have you ever heard the first episode?
I mean, of course I did because I was there.
Well, yeah, you were there.
But besides being there, I have heard it, but just when I edited it way back.
Ah,
You know what I'm saying? Like I don't look back. You know, I'm like walking away from the explosion without looking back. You know, in an action movie. That's what I am. So I don't remember a lot of it. I know there's a lot of intros, and you talked about the man, the Lincoln, Mr. Lincoln.
Mr.
Talked about
Lincoln.
Mr. Lincoln,
Yep.
and your daughter seeing it and stuff like that. And I remember that. And I remember I said I have nothing to say because I have no experience. And I basically let
With
you,
the-
Joe, and Dave.
With the
I mean,
paranormal, right.
right, talk. I know. I remember that you guys talk a lot back then.
Yes, yeah. So I was just as nervous releasing that first episode,
Dude.
108 episodes later,
Mm-hmm.
as I was the first time we recorded.
Are you saying you're
I
nervous
was
right now?
very nervous. No, I'm okay now, but re-releasing that first one was
Oh,
a
I
little
see now.
nerve-wracking.
You're talking about re-releasing and not that you're still nervous recording.
No, I'm good recording.
Okay, good.
I'm good because I've been drinking. So
Solves everything.
you got a drink in your hand.
And I'm going to
too.
go a little bit hand in hand to our Patreon episode.
That's
Sorry,
right.
jumped the gun. I'm sorry
You
about
did
that.
jump the gun a little bit. That's okay. That's okay. But you know what? Having re-released the first episode, I got quite a few emails about that first episode.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And they all centered around whether or not Mr. Lincoln is still around.
That's interesting.
Yes. So
Is that going to be a topic for a different thing, or are we going to mention it here?
yes. So that is going to be our February Patreon episode, The Hat Man.
Okay.
What collectively these beings are referred to as the Hat Man.
Okay.
So listeners have to go to patreon.com/supernatural occurrence studies podcast to hear what we have to say about the Hat Man and Mr. Lincoln.
Or Hatman.
Hatman.
Like one name. Mr. Hatman.
Mr. Hatman.
Like Spiderman. Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. But
well, not actually, sorry.
so that's what we're coming off of. We're coming off of the re-release of our first episode. And this is kind of a touchy episode, this one. It's a very melancholic episode.
This episode we're doing right now?
Yeah, episode 109.
You mean because of the subject matter, or what's in the eve of?
Just a little bit of both, I guess.
Okay.
The subject matter was, brought to my mind. I'll tell the story here
Okay.
in a little bit. What
Yeah.
gave me the idea for this topic? It's torture. We're going to talk about torture methods today.
Yeah. We ran out of serial killers, so we're going to go straight to the horse's mouth.
Yeah, right. No, I still have more on that.
No,
too.
there's so many serial killers.
This serial killer web is still growing, still spinning.
And we're still sticking to this country. When you
Yes.
think about it, right? There's a lot more serial killers out there.
Yes, there is.
Anyway, sorry.
No. So before I get into all that and get all torn up here, what have you guys been up to? Mrs. Raven and Mr. Spectre.
Just Miss Raven.
Miss Raven.
I had bronchitis for like 2.5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Like a good fortnight.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
You okay now?
Yeah, I still have like a little bit of a mucus buildup, but it's a lot better.
Mucus.
Yeah.
I hate that word.
Mucus.
You could call it mucus.
Mucus.
Mucus is bad, like moist.
Yeah.
Moist is bad, too.
I like
Moist mucus.
Moist mucus.
But
That's
you're
what I
okay now?
had, yeah.
Your drink is pretty full.
It
Just
is.
going to say.
It's going to stay full the whole time.
It's a lot of my Bacardi. Your cup in there.
Skeet,
Skeet, skeet, indeed.
diamonds all over
Don't
my
ever
body.
say that. Skeet.
Skeet, skeet.
All right, so you're mucusy. Oscar.
I have to deal with her. So
Anything up with you?
It's been that way. No, I've just been dealing with her. I gave her an Apple Watch.
He gave me an Apple Watch.
You have an Apple Watch.
I do have an Apple Watch.
5?
Yes.
Oh, God.
I know no one can see this out there. I'm sorry for the interruption. I know no one out there can see this, but Jay has this thing where he like leans into the mic, but still shifts his mouth away from the mic.
109 episodes later.
As if that does anything. Luckily, these mics pick up basically everything anyway.
Right.
But it's okay. It's funny how you think that does anything good for you.
So, your Apple Watch 5, you like?
I do like. I like a lot.
I like the way you guys were doing that little
Walkie-talkie.
Walkie-talkie,
That's what they
yeah.
call. That's what the app is called. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Right. When you
I'm
get one.
so close to getting
When
one.
you get one,
You're
we
gonna
can
get
all
one.
walkie-talkie.
It's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when.
When, right.
When, yeah.
So I could be on your walkie-talkie
Yeah.
group.
We'll get sick of each other real fast.
Yes. Awesome.
Yes.
So, okay, so you're mucusy and you have an Apple Watch 5.
Yes.
Yeah. Series 5. Yeah, that's right.
Yes. And Oscar's about to get a really cool gift, too.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Oh, shit.
Could you give us a hint?
Should I close my eyes? I know. Ears.
You know what it is.
I don't.
Yeah, you do.
You said it was a surprise, so
No,
why would I?
no, that's a different thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about the AirPods.
Yeah, okay. She wants to get me AirPods.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Oh,
get him AirPods.
the things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
your ears.
the wireless Apple product thing.
Yeah.
And now this part, I want you to
'Cause I really
close
like
your
hers.
ears for.
I really liked
Oh
her.
wait, no, I can't say it because you're gonna edit it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, I'll know. So don't tell. I'll just
Okay.
or give a hint, but a hint that is so vague. Way that requires. No, I don't think you're gonna. It's okay. You don't have to.
Okay.
Anyway.
I'm gonna make them special for you.
For some reason, she really wanted to buy me AirPods. Right? That's a weird
Yeah.
problem to have because
Yeah.
I wanted some. I tried hers before. They're amazing. I really like the way they fit.
Yeah.
They're super convenient. Obviously, it's all about convenience these days.
Don't lose one.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've never lost one before, and yeah. So, but
Well,
she
it
wants to-
started with me finding like matching Apple Watch bands and iPhone cases, and then I found a matching iPhone case, matching Apple band, and a matching AirPods case, and that's where it started.
Whoa. Okay.
And it also started with the wire, or not the wireless, but the charging stand he has. It is wireless, right? Pretty wireless.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
wireless.
it's a charging stand that charges the iPhone, the Apple Watch, and the AirPods, along with the Apple Pencil.
Today's show is sponsored by Apple.
Damn. Yeah. Sponsored by Apple.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's complete it.
Shit. I need to date you. All these cool Apple gadgets.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right.
So
Anything
I guess that's about anything important. Let's see here. Let me think. I know something happened. I just can't remember, man.
I understand.
I'm positive something happened. Oh no, I can't mention that. No, I can tell you that off air though.
What?
If you want to mention it to me, it's about work. But I really don't want to mention that here. Because people definitely at work kind of listen to the show and I don't want to mention it here. But let's see. Nothing. People are getting sick. It got really cold the last couple of days.
Fucking freezing.
I mean, not for me. I'm still fine. But like the car is I can tell the car is cold all the time. Takes longer for the heat. Takes longer for her to unbridle herself.
For those listening to us in warm climates,
Yeah.
right?
Go fuck yourselves. No, obviously I'm not saying I prefer the cold. I'm just saying it doesn't bother me super much. Yeah, I don't know. I've been chill. I've been doing I've been trying to do I've been doing other shows. We just did the Oscar show. We just recorded that recently.
Oscars, yeah.
It's coming out the same weekend this one is, I believe. I finished editing it. And I've been planning in the future for a third podcast. You know, Luke, my friend Luke, old co-host for my show.
What's your show?
Thank you. It's another movie podcast.
Another movie podcast.
Yeah, that's a play on words because there's so many movie podcasts out there. Yeah, another movie podcast. He was actually, Luke is going to join us for a little while here and there. He did the Oscar show with me, the first time in a year.
Oh.
And he's going to be doing our top 10 films of the decade. Ooh. And that's been a hard list. I narrowed it down to 54 movies.
54 movies.
Out of the initial list was about 250.
Oh, my God.
I cut it down to 54, and I have no idea where to cut anymore.
Give us 3 movies that are on that list.
Burning, Certified Copy, fucking Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
I like Scott. I know that one.
I know. I had to mention one that you know.
Burning. All right.
Certified Copy. I don't know what that is. Right. Yeah, just to name a few, I guess. But anyway, despite that, been planning another podcast very soon coming up. Won't mention much about it. Just saying it out there in the ether. And Luke wants to do one.
Really?
His own show, separate, like a solo show.
What's
about video games and stuff.
Okay.
You know, I don't know. It just started. No titles yet. But when I find out more, I'll let you know.
A video game podcast.
Yeah. So he's been asking me some. He's been asking me some questions about, what do you use for this, and so we've been talking a little bit.
As far as equipment and things like
that,
that.
Or what programs I use.
Gotcha.
Things like that. He was asking me about my interface, our interface.
So, yeah, that's great. Support independent podcasts, and
definitely.
If you want to do a podcast, fucking do it.
Anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it.
I know.
Yeah. But not everyone has this cocoon.
No, you are great at cocooning yourself. Now, what you been up to?
Oh, man. What's it? Get paid? Yes.
Okay.
I did get paid. It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work, but it's nice. Besides that, just a lot of travel. Going to California at the end of this month.
Wait, for work? Or?
For work,
okay.
Yeah, to Laguna Beach.
I think it's pronounced Laguna.
Poor me.
Poor you,
yeah.
Right.
Poor me. But just a lot of work. Today's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, yeah, we're recording on
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, love.
Yeah.
Heart-shaped fingers. I'm doing it right now. You see it? Lexi,
yeah.
Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. The Oscar?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
It was more like a diamond shape.
Yeah, no, just work. Work.
Really good heart shape.
That you didn't like that? Jesus Christ, we want me to contort and break my fingers?
You're bending your index too much.
Am I?
Yeah.
But I'm getting the point, and no one can see this.
This is an important podcast.
This is
right.
Okay. No, I wish I could say there was something really rad that happened to me, but really there hasn't been. Just Valentine's Day today.
Yeah.
We had a nice little Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Cooked some steaks, some crab legs.
That you didn't finish?
That I didn't finish.
Right.
No.
That's a huge...
No, I got some bad news and lost my appetite. But
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but otherwise, we're here. We're ready to roll.
Yeah.
A new podcast episode.
All right.
You know?
Yeah.
I feel way off track.
It's okay. I can segue you perfectly. You know what we should hear, though? Really? Truly, honestly. I think it's about time we finally get to listen to how people can reach us.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
Jay did not expect that. I
did not.
No.
The easiest way to contact the Supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast is by visiting our website, Lexi. Do you know our website?
Chicago Ghosts at podcast.org.
Chicago Ghosts.
www.chicagoghostspodcast.com.
ChicagoGhostPodcast.com.
I think she was doing me in that.
That's right. ChicagoGhostPodcast.com. If you go to ChicagoGhostPodcast.com.
Yeah, it's hard to say, isn't it?
God. And click on follow, you get to all of our social sites. Whether it's Facebook, Twitter,
Dig, MySpace,
Instagram,
Cufflinks, TikTok.
No, we don't. We should get a podcast TikTok, shouldn't we?
You know they do video,
just
right?
TikTok ghosts.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should. But yeah, you could get to... no good.
You lost it?
No good.
Lost the mojo, huh?
Lost the mojo. Click on follow. From there, you can get to our Facebook, Instagram, our Twitter, YouTube,
Twitter,
and of course, our Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, for just $5 a month,
that's how many cents a day?
You can get access to Patreon-only podcast episodes. Yeah. Episodes that will not appear in our public podcast feed. We've got some great episodes up on Patreon already.
Oh, yeah, we do.
And there's a lot more to come, right? We have, what do we have up there? We have,
Asking me as if I know.
we have the horrible case of Junca Fruta.
I was just thinking about that today. It just popped in my head, man. That was a fucked up case.
That really was.
Yeah.
We have some Mandela Effect episodes up there.
Yeah.
We have,
That's it, huh? I'm fucking with you. Obviously, I know. The Yule episode.
the Yule episode, right?
Right.
Oh, what happened at the Yule ceremony?
Yes, the Yule ceremony.
The curse.
We got a real honest
was
to God
fucked up.
pagan priest on there.
Yep, honest God pagan priest.
Yeah.
Yep. We're recording the Hat Man actually this evening
Oh, I didn't know you were going to mention it.
for Patreon. Yeah,
Cool.
Trying to entice Patreon people to go to Patreon,
Right. I hear you.
but yeah, there's a lot more as well.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Name another episode we did.
Rodney Alcala,
Oh,
The
wow.
dating
That's
game
the
killer?
first one we did?
the dating
From a
game
long
killer.
time ago?
That was a great one. Remember that one?
Yeah. It was the show guy. Yeah.
And there's more. I can't. It's
Yeah, it's funny.
I've
It's
been
escaping me, too.
drinking heavily, and it's past 2:00 in the morning.
It's escaping me. You know what I like to do? Believe it or not, I do listen to our shows
Yeah.
after they're released.
Yeah.
But I usually don't listen to all of it. I skip around because obviously I heard the whole thing before.
You lived the whole thing.
I lived the whole thing,
That's right.
obviously.
He was there.
But I listen to them just to like refresh sometimes. You know, it's great to call back on it in my head. Like the more I hear something, obviously, the more I remember it. And the Patreon episodes, I can't do them because I'm not on the
Right.
It's not on my phone. I have to actually go to my computer and find the file and then press play. I'm not gonna do all that.
Why don't you
So
just pay for the Patreon?
I'm not
I
gonna-
mean, I'm saying, Lexi.
why
it's
would I
it's a good
possibly
idea.
do that?
What do you mean?
Why would I possibly do that?
To support?
I'm supporting. I'm doing the show. That's enough support.
No, no.
Yeah. How you like the Apple Watch, huh?
I love it.
How about you be on my side?
But
Sorry.
there's a lot of great stuff up there. Listeners, check it out. Patreon.com/supernatural Occurrence Studies podcast.
Slashing.
And for just $5 a month, you get
Keep picking
access.
this up to smoking. I
You
don't.
get access. Oh,
Oscar.
Good thing that was empty.
It's empty. I knew it was empty.
For just $5 a month, you get access to all that shit. Call Chicago area code 872-529-0767.
Oh, that's Kankakee, what, Wyoming? Right? No, I know it is.
I'm pretty sure it's the Chicago Gold Coast.
It's Kankakee, yeah, Wyoming. It's like right next to like One Stop Horse Town or something. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
might
it's not
be.
a real place, man.
Call that number, leave us a message or a text, and we'll read them and play them on the show. Contact us via email at contact@chicagoghostpodcast.com.
We'll put you in our spam.
Probably right to spam. Exactly. Instagram and Twitter is at Chicago Ghosts. Facebook is at Chicago Ghost Podcast. And if you really want to support the show, you can leave us a 5-star ratings on iTunes. iTunes ratings helps listeners just like you find our little passion project. So search Supernatural Occurrence Studies Podcast on iTunes. Off the phone you're probably listening to this podcast to on right now. I don't know. Help me out here.
Why? You're doing great.
And rate the show.
Only you doubt yourself.
Oscar,
Like, follow, and subscribe.
Like-
Oscar, take us home.
what? No, we're not done.
No, you have to say like, follow, and obey.
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah, do all that stuff. And Oscar, let's take a break.
Okay.
Listeners, welcome back to the show. Well, the lights are turned down low, the drinks are flowing, and the ceremonial candle is lit. Lexi, how lit is that candle?
Bro, that candle is lit as fuck, man.
Lit as fuck, man.
She sounds high.
Lit AFM.
Love it.
Wait.
I missed that.
Lit
F.
AFMB.
AFMB?
Lit as fuck, my brother.
Ah, I love it. Let's start this show.
I thought it was Moby Dick.
You know how you could smell a certain smell or hear a certain song and it zaps you back to another time, another place. Those memories just come flooding back with a song or a smell. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, not as much as you'd think about songs, unless I haven't heard a particular song since that first time a long time ago.
No.
But I get that sometimes with smells, but mainly with visuals.
Like what?
Oh, like something like, even from a new movie, let's say a movie I've never seen before, new to me, I mean. I would watch a movie, and it'll have a certain scene that'll spark a memory from a long time ago.
Okay.
You know, and it'll feel like a time machine for a moment, mind you, just for a moment. It's not like I relive. I mean, it feels like I'm reliving it, but it's all instantaneous. But yeah, it feels slower for sure in the moment.
Yeah.
And sometimes older movies, and part of the reason why I love some movies so much, like, you know, like unbalanced compared to the rest of them, like unfairly love them more than I should. It's because of those reasons, right? The personal touches, right, that makes you love that movie. That's the reason why people love movies sometimes. And it reminds me of, but it's always a visual for me.
Visual.
I mean, it goes with the dialogue if it's happening in a scene, but usually it's the visual.
Okay.
I get that sometimes. Or sometimes I'm walking by a street and some outfit color reminds me of something.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
For me, it's a lot of sounds, smells. You know, a certain smell will take me back to childhood, my grandmother's house, cooking, or the basement, or, you know, not the basement and creepy, but just the home. You know, certain parts of the home, a smell will bring me back there. And I was listening to my Spotify earlier this week when I was driving long hours, many miles, and a song by the Scorpions came on my Spotify.
Okay.
And it's called Hey You. And it's I'd probably say it's a lesser known song by the Scorpions. Hair metal, I guess you could call it, or early, well, 70s, 80s metal, right?
Yeah.
Scorps. The Scorps. And you know, they're known for the Winds of Change. Do you ever hear that song?
I'm sure I have.
The Winds of Change starts off with the whistle. Yeah, I can't do it.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try.
I'm not good at music.
Their major song is Winds of Change, but a lesser known song is called Hey You. And it's a great song. It's a fantastic song. I'm almost thinking if we should plug it in or not. I'm not sure. But yeah, so let's get a little sample of Hey You here. All right, so I love this song. All right, now this song was introduced to me by a friend of mine in high school, a very dear friend, and I'm just going to call him Frost, and I'll explain why in a moment. While I'm just referring to him as Frost. Me and Frost were incredibly close.
Frost and I
in high school. Frost and I, you know, we hung out together. We partied together. We used to bomb together or tag together. Frost was his tag name.
You got TikTok together?
Right. That was his tag name, actually. So we used to run the streets of Chicago tagging and bombing, and he was Frost. So I'm just going to refer to him as Frost.
So not after the poet or Jack Frost?
No, definitely not Jack Frost.
Got it.
Especially how this turns out. But so I heard that, and he turned me on to this song Hey You by the Scorpions.
Yeah.
And we were thick as thieves. You know, he would sleep at my house. He even slept at my grandmother's house, and that's a whole nother level when you sleep at the grandmother's house.
That is,
you know
what, that's true.
So, and we'd take our dates to high school dances together, and my mom loved him. It was like her second son. And we kind of fell out. We just kind of lost touch after high school. And so I looked him up after I heard this song on Spotify.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, whatever happened to Frost?
That's I see now what you meant by that memory thing. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, instantly
right.
took me back. I mean, I remember working out together. I remember suntanning together, working out in the backyard. I didn't always have this luscious dad body. We actually used to care how our appearance was.
Do you hide the lusciousness? I don't see it.
Well, I wear a lot of hoodie sweatshirts
That's true.
to hide that dad bod. But
that is true.
We used to care at one point. So all these memories started flooding back. I'm like, fuck, whatever happened to him? Why did we fall out? So I did what anybody does today, and I jumped to Google.
Right.
Well, it turns out he's in jail for murder.
Wow.
He fucking killed somebody, beat him to death with a hammer.
Whoa.
Over drugs, and then he attempted to kill a nurse and tried to grab a cop's gun and kill himself in a hospital where he was kept for a while, and he's in jail until I did the math. It's like he's going to be 85. I'll probably be long dead. By the chance he even gets out, I'll be long gone, I'm sure.
Mayhaps.
So I started thinking to myself, like, man, I can't believe it, man. It was just...
That must be a trip.
It was really hard to well, that's why I never heard from him,
Well, I mean, maybe that's not exactly why, but that's not why you heard from him recently, at least.
right, within the last 10 years.
10, yeah, because it's been more than 10 years since high school.
Yes. Yeah.
It's been 47 years? Since
No, not that long. 95 is when I graduated. Right. I'm old. But, so I thought to myself, like, fuck, man, I'm probably going to I'll never see this guy. Like, legit never see this person again.
So that was the part that bummed you out? Not that what he did as much as the fact that you won't get to see him?
So really, I mourn the child.
Yeah.
Because we were kids. I mean, we were children at that point. I mourn the child that I knew that I was close with. And, obviously, he's where he belongs. I hate to say that, but he's where he belongs, more in the family of the person he killed, clearly. And I'm not saying anything about that.
Yeah, no, I know.
But I mourn the child that he was.
Definitely.
The person that he was.
Right. No one's like that all the time.
Right. Just always smiling, happy, just goofy. Just remember laughing and just having a great time with Frost. So I started thinking to myself, I'm like, well, what could be worse than being in prison until you're 85? So I came upon torture.
Really?
What could be worse?
Yeah.
And my mind just started going in places, and that's how I came up with the idea for this topic.
The hammer thing reminds me of an example regarding this torture episode we're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it in a bit, if I remember.
No, I'll remind you.
Okay.
So that's where I came up with the idea. So I said, what could possibly be worse than being in prison from such a young age till you're basically, there's nothing left of you at that age.
Yeah.
So I came up with 10 torture methods.
Methods, right.
That humanity has practiced throughout history.
Yes.
That would be worse.
Yes.
Than being in prison for 85 years.
Yeah, right. It does. I read a lot of them, a lot of examples, Jay, and I gotta say, it certainly feels worse.
Yes.
Than it is to get what?
Your 3 square meals.
I was about to say
a bed.
Dropping the soap. Right. Way better.
Right. I don't know if he's dropping the soap. Yeah. And that's the funny thing, like, once all this crashed on me and I found out what was going on, and I wanted to write him, to contact him, and everybody I talked to was like, don't you fucking dare. Don't do it. If he...
I wonder why.
Well, their reason was, if he ever gets paroled, he's going to come looking for you. He's going to come to your house, and you have a family, and this guy's a murderer, and, he's not the same person you remember.
That's just, I don't know, man.
Not one person said it was a good idea to contact him.
Funny enough is that I would have been the first one to tell you that it's not a bad idea.
Really?
Yeah.
So I haven't, but maybe one day I will.
I'm against the avalanche here, but
yeah. So I guess this episode is dedicated to Frost. You know what I mean?
In a way.
I guess it could be worse.
Yeah.
But sorry for the victim and sorry for the child that committed that crime. So
yeah. Although I had the good fortune to know that my old high school friends, by friends I mean loosely termed friends, because, looking back, they weren't really my friends. But the people I grew up with, I should say, a lot of them went to jail pretty much right after high school, and I knew they were there. So, it wasn't like years apart. They were like, oh, I wonder what happened. Nope, I know what happened to them. No, they're probably out and have families and have other things now, but
yeah,
because it was minor crimes, lesser crimes than that. But
right, lesser crimes of murder.
Yeah, than murder. Right?
Yeah.
Mainly drug related or violence or alcohol related.
Yeah.
But yeah. But I had the good fortune of that.
Right. Kind of a downer. This is a downer episode. All about
yeah. I mean,
all about death.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think it's super fascinating. I didn't see anything downer in my research. It fucked up for sure, but I didn't ever feel that way.
Really?
Or even melancholic about it. Nothing surprised me in the more I read.
Okay.
And yet some elements surprised me for sure as to how they came about such details. Again, I'm just being very vague here, but it's I love this topic, Jay. I wish not that you would tell me. Yeah, in a way, yeah, so I would have more time to prepare. But I was reading books, and I was like, oh man, I remember this other history book I read. I actually really find this subject fascinating from like 2 years ago when I first came upon it.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad. It was an interesting topic to research for sure. Humanity is great at fucking each other up. I mean, that's without saying here.
We really are.
As you'll see.
We really are.
So I guess it could be worse than life in prison. So
yes.
So I've decided I chose 10 torture methods
Top 10
to talk about tonight. Top 10, right.
People love 10.
There's going to be things that's left off this list that listeners are probably going to say, why the fuck didn't you talk about X? Right. But I found ones that were interesting to me.
Yeah.
So the first one I'm going to talk about is the guillotine.
Okay.
Everyone knows the guillotine.
Everyone does.
Yeah. Now as we go through this episode, I'll do my best to describe these twisted mechanisms of pain and death.
I'll help you too.
Good.
And I'll probably have something historical based on almost every single method you give out.
Cool. So. Good. But even though I'll try to do my best to describe the actual instruments, the physical structures that did this destruction, I'll do my best. But I also want listeners to go to the show notes because I have a lot of pictures in the show notes of these devices.
That's true.
So as we're going through this, check out the show notes, click the link, see the pictures of the devices we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. If you listen to the show, then you're already in it.
Right.
I mean, this is not off the mark or anything of what we usually do or normally do.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So the guillotine, Oscar, it's probably the most well-known as a device for delivering capital punishment, but the guillotine also doubles as a torture device. Now, historically, devices like the guillotine were used to execute criminals as early as 1307. 1307.
Where at,
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But it really gained popularity,
1800s.
and it actually received its name, guillotine.
Yeah, 1800s, right?
In France during the French Revolution.
Yeah.
And it was actually a French physician and a Freemason named Joseph Ignace Guillotine, an opponent of the death penalty, actually, who argued that if capital punishment must happen in France, the method of execution should be designed to end life and to not cause unnecessary pain.
Yeah.
And that all criminals, regardless of class, should be dispatched quickly and painlessly. You see, in France, prior to the introduction of the guillotine, peasants and noblemen were put to death differently. If you were a peasant accused of a crime, you got some nasty, slow, inhumane death, like the breaking wheel, or death by quartering. And we'll talk about the breaking wheel later on.
And then staples like burning and hanging.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Drowning.
Now, if you were a nobleman, someone from money or from a higher class, you were beheaded swiftly by a swordsman.
Mm-hmm.
The guillotine, as it would become, was to be the great equalizer. No matter your station in life, everyone dies the same way. That sort of thing. And ultimately, even though he had nothing to do with its design or creation, the beheading machine known as the guillotine was named after this Joseph Guillotine. Actually, the guillotine as a functioning device was invented not by Joseph Guillotine, but by Dr. Antoine Louis, French...
It's probably Louis.
Louis, you think?
I think so.
Antoine Louis?
Maybe not.
Yeah, it could be. A French surgeon, and a guy named Tobias Schmidt, a German artisan and harpsichord manufacturer. Actually,
back then, harpsichords or Russ had all the stock.
Harpsichords, beheading machine.
Harpsichord, Jesus, that rolls off the tongue.
It's just really ironic that the guy, named Guillotine was completely against the death penalty, but yet that's the name that got stuck to this execution device.
Mm-hmm.
Now, looking for a way to execute people that was more humane than other methods of execution popular in Europe at the time, such as the breaking wheel, which again we'll cover later, or burning at the stake, like you said, King Louis XVI gave his blessing, and France adopted the guillotine as the country's sanctioned method of execution. And ironically, both Louis XVI and his wife, Queen Marie Antoinette, were beheaded by the guillotine in 1793.
And it was so fast. They were like, oh my God, this is going to be so painless as it happened.
Exactly.
They were commenting on the fast painlessness of their upcoming death. Yeah.
Yes.
And they were eating cakes while they were doing it.
Now, the first execution by guillotine happened on April 25th, 1792. The criminal, or the victim, however you want to look at it, was a man named Nicolas Pelletier, who was sentenced to death for theft and violently resisting arrest. Put to death for that. The crowd that actually turned out booed the execution because it only took seconds to complete. Then it was over.
It's funny how this is. I would have put this last.
The guillotine?
Because it's the last time we did executions publicly. Using the guillotine.
Oh, yeah, that would have...
It was...
that could make sense.
Whenever you're done with the guillotine, I'll explain more. But
okay.
It's okay.
Sure. And so the crowd was upset because the execution, boom, was so fast.
Yeah.
They were so used to the torturous execution of days past that they felt cheated.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? But the guillotine did become popular. So popular, in fact, that during the French Revolution... Between the years 1793 and 1794, it's estimated that 17,000 people were put to death by the guillotine. And if you do the math, that's approximately 47 people put to death per day by guillotine for 365 days straight. That's a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, I mean, more so back then because populations were lower.
Yeah.
I mean,
right, exactly.
I mean, compared to today.
That's a massive amount of people getting their heads cut off.
Definitely.
Now, in case you live under a rock and you have no idea what the guillotine is, what it looks like, it's a device composed of two 14 or 15-foot upright wooden posts topped off with a horizontal beam. A groove is cut into the inside of each upright post, facilitating the easy and very exact upward and downward motion of a massive wooden block mounted on top of an angled blade. Block and blade, together, usually weighed between 75 and 175 pounds. The wooden block and blade were hoisted up into place at the top of the guillotine by a rope, where it was held in place by a pin, which was attached to that rope. With the blade in place, back at the base of the guillotine, a person or a prisoner is forced into either a position on their knees or into a laying position on their stomachs, on what kind of looks like a bench, in between the two upright posts. The person's head is then placed into a device called a stock, effectively holding the head captive in a very precise position.
Mm-hmm.
Their arms would be tied behind their backs, and at this point, there's little to nothing the unfortunate victim could do.
Gravity does the rest.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
They're pinned into place with the death blade hovering over them. At a signal, an executioner yanks on the rope pulls the pin, and the block and blade come slicing down onto the back of the victim's neck, immediately removing the head. The severed head then falls into a basket conveniently placed under the victim's head prior to execution. It's just gnarly. Now, I did the math. A 170-pound object falling 15 feet hits with the force of approximately 2,800 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a 2,800-pound object hitting the back of your neck. A 2,800-pound bladed object. You have to admit, the guillotine was a very quick, effective, fairly clean method of execution.
Definitely.
Quick and effective, but definitely not humane. And here's where the torture part comes in to go along with our theme. You see, today, most physicians agree that after decapitation, it can take 2 to 3 seconds for the brain to slip into unconsciousness. Some even go so far as to say it takes 10 seconds after beheading before your brain, while your brain is consciously aware, for up to 10 seconds before it slips into unconsciousness. Even if we take the standard belief of 2 to 3 seconds, that means your brain is functioning and aware of what's happening. Think about it. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. That right there is a millennia if you're conscious and aware of what's going on, that your head is no longer attached to your body. Imagine it, for 3 whole seconds, you could see and hear and maybe even smell everything that's going on around you. Mm-hmm. You smell the shit let loose from your own body when your head was removed. You see and hear the jeering, laughing, screaming crowd that came to witness your execution. And if common practice takes place after you're beheaded, your own executioner will hold up your head, show it to the crowd, and then slap your cheeks for one final bit of humiliation. So there's a chance you might even come face to face with your killer in those last few fleeting seconds before unconsciousness. And God forbid if your consciousness lasts for 10 seconds after beheading. If that's not torture, I don't know what is.
So like I said, it's a funny thing that you picked the guillotine first, because it's the last one that I've been reading, because it goes timeline, right, chronologically. Fascinating time for humanity. Super fascinating. But the guillotine, marks the end of an era of torture, of the way it was tortured, and more importantly, the public access version of executions. Before electric chairs and lethal injections. Actually, after that, they started doing executions after the century behind walls, like inside the institutions of the prisons or whatever, away from crowds. Right. They started doing it that way. Even if they used a guillotine, they didn't do it in front of a crowd.
You're right.
And 9 times out of 10, it was, especially with the French, let's say, it was the governor or the state or the government and the installment of whatever regime or leadership is there. I forget who exactly. It was them that cut the people off from seeing executions. And it was reported that before the guillotine was introduced, up until and during even some of it, that the crowds only got bigger and bigger to watch executions.
They loved it.
They loved it the exact same way the Romans loved watching gladiators fight tigers.
Yeah, you're right.
The exact same way we watch boxing matches. The exact same way we watch UFC. Or even something completely fake. The way we watch Avengers. There's violence in that, even though it's all fake and staged. Exact same way. It feels like it's what I've read from psychologists and studies and whatnot. They allude to, and this is not exactly like they all hold this belief. There's a lot of debate going on. But that the nature of all this, the fascination of it, the reason why the crowds were always jeering and excited and wanted more, and tailgated, I mentioned that to you.
Yes.
They legit tailgate, especially in the older days, like 16th century. The reason it's so fascinating is because the movies, the boxing metaphor, all the other stuff, it triggers like an animalistic instinct to enjoy this. They were entertained by this. This was their television, Jay. This was their time to shine. There was their time to enjoy something as a group. The mob mentality of it. And it's fucked up for us in our modern ears, but it really isn't fucked up. The more I read about how life was lived back then and how people saw things, how the political atmosphere met, how people treated executioners, we'll get into that later as we get to older methods. I read a lot about executioners, which there isn't much, by the way, but what I read enough of. It's super fascinating, and there's many reasons, a lot of reasons why different places like provinces in Germany, before Germany became Germany, and why France and why England, the three main places I focused on, a little bit of Prussia too. Yeah. The reason all these things, well, Prussia was kind of German. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sorry. The reason these three places are the most fascinating to me is because they all had in different centuries or on the same time, they had different reasons why they executed people and why they went harsher in this, why they went less harsher for this. And it's super fascinating, all interesting, all different, and almost always at the root of it for entertainment.
Yeah. Right.
And the guillotine was on purposely politically done by the government to stop people from enjoying it. Because the guillotine was so fast, people thought that it was a waste of time to make a journey. There's no cars back then. Right. To make the journey all the way from wherever they lived to that city or whatever, to that town square, right? To watch something that lasts literally seconds. Yeah. And they felt, cheated.
Cheated, yeah.
Yeah. So, and that was part of the major thing that caused them to downfall and calm down, guys. Enough murder for you guys.
Right.
Right.
The equalizer.
Right.
It's going to be quick, it's going to be painless, and it's for everybody.
I mean, in retrospect, you can see why. I mean, that's a positive governmental program to stop them from coming. I actually kind of like that. And now, looking at it back now, of course, we're also much more against public executions these days. But yeah. So, and I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's the general reason.
Yeah.
Why it's especially in the French.
Now, what do you think of this concept, doctor saying the head is still aware once it's removed?
Oh, that's funny that you mentioned that. You know, when you were, right before you mentioned the awareness of the consciousness after the beheading happens, is that when you said that they're still tortured, I thought you were going to mention the walk, because sometimes the walk from the prison or wherever the prisoner is held to the stage where the guillotine is at, people would throw rocks, torture the man or woman along the way. And I thought that's what you meant by the torture, because sometimes it would get pretty extreme, especially in England with hangings. It happened a lot. It was part of the process, actually, that would actually elongate the walk to make it worse.
I kind of get into that in another execution method.
So I thought you were going to mention that.
That sort of waiting period, that angst of waiting for your death, and then the walk too. And
there's the religious component too, which I'm not mentioning yet until the more harsher crimes.
Okay.
Or the harsher stuff. But religion is fucked up. It was really fucked up back then. If whatever you believe in now, they believed it more.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, yeah, there's many examples.
Well, people don't realize or accept the fact that once the head is gone from the body, it's still functioning.
It's like a chicken, right? Like when you think of that, or you think of a worm or a cockroach, right? It's still moving.
Yeah, it's still functioning. It's still
kind of like that. Kind of like that, right?
Yes. And to a lot of people, it sounds unbelievable, but there's actually documented cases.
Definitely.
Of
at this time,
consciousness after beheading.
During this time, this pre-French Revolution to French Revolution, and after that, was that 18th century? 19th century? 18th, 1700s. During the 18th century, there was definitely more reporting going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's English because, unfortunately, since England ruled the world, they had more records they kept intact when they took over other countries. Most likely the records were destroyed, if they kept any, about their stuff. So there's a lot we don't know. But a lot of it does come from England. Travelers, for example, there's a book I read about that, and so on and so forth, some Germanic too. Yeah. But there's a lot, but there was more in that century.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Definitely. I got a couple cases here of consciousness after beheading.
Yeah.
For people who don't believe it. Yeah. On July 17th, 1793, a woman named Charlotte Corday was beheaded as punishment for assassinating a popular politician. He was a revolutionary, a famous journalist, a guy named Jean-Paul Marat. After she was beheaded, the executioner did as was fashion at the time. He lifted her head up out of the basket that the head fell in when it was cut off, and he slapped her on the cheeks as that final bit of humiliation. At the slap, Charlotte's cheeks flushed, and witnesses said she turned her eyes towards the executioner. She glared at him and contorted her face into this angry, disdainful scowl.
It's like a Beetlejuice bit.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
And in 1905, a man named Langeil was beheaded, and afterwards...
Nailed it, by the way.
Yeah, Langeil. He had his head cut off. He was beheaded, and afterwards his eyes and lips continued to move in these really irregular patterns. Mm-hmm. But an attending physician who was on hand for the execution, right after this happened and his eyes and his lips were moving all crazy, the doctor yelled out, "Langeil!" At which time Langeil's eyes and lips stopped moving instantly. And his eyes slowly looked up, and his pupils focused right on the doctor. And this happened twice. The third time the doctor called his name, Langeil was still, and that was it. It's even said that at some beheadings, the victim's eyes would blink on command for up to 30 seconds after the head was separated from the body. It's a fucking nightmare. Uh-huh. And so the last public beheading by guillotine in France took place on June 17th, 1939. A man named Eugene Weidmann, a serial kidnapper, robber, and murderer. After Weidmann's execution, people threw themselves onto the floor and they dabbed anything they could in the man's blood. Scarves and their own clothes, things like this, to keep as a souvenir. Now, the last actual execution ever by guillotine was that of a murderer, a man named Hamida Jandoubi.
Nailed it.
Which took place in a French prison in 1977.
Wow, that's
just
pretty
42
recent.
years ago.
That's very recent.
I mean, when
I'm surprised you even mentioned 20th century. I didn't read any of the
Isn't that crazy?
Modern. But
77. That's when I was born.
Hell, though, even the 1930 whatever, it's still too early.
Yep,
or
that was
recent.
the last legal beheading.
Wow,
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So that's the guillotine.
One down.
9 more to go.
I don't think it'll all be this long, but yeah. Just warning for people who might be worried about that.
Right.
I just had a lot on this one. I mean, there's a lot more. I'm going everything, so I'm going to say this one now. Sorry, I meant to mention this disclaimer earlier, is that I've been reading books and stuff and so on. I've been reading a journal on an executioner living in the 16th century, and I've been recapping on some of the old audio files, podcasting that historians talk about, giving a lot of references just last 24 hours. So everything's kind of fresh, but also I might mistake some details, and I apologize for that in advance. And I'm not going to mention names because I'll butcher them all.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
The names are, it's hard, especially those French names.
I'm bad with French names, especially French names.
Hamida Jandoubi.
Yeah, say it again. That's
the
good
last
for you.
guy that killed in 77.
I think if you say it 3 times fast in the mirror, you'll summon him.
Ooh, like Candyman.
Yeah, probably.
Now, if one form of torture rivals the guillotine for popularity, meaning the most well-known throughout the world today, crucifixion would be it. As millions of people wear a symbol for this horrible torture method around their necks every single day, myself included. And that is Jesus Christ on the cross. Because Jesus' death on the cross and his subsequent resurrection is the main focal point in Christianity, crucifixion is one of those things that has crept into society and has subsequently lost its power for being a truly fucking terrible way to die. Think about it. We wear Jesus nailed to the cross around our necks. We have pictures and paintings in our house depicting Jesus suffering on the cross.
Not my house.
You're a Hispanic household. You don't have that?
I don't think so.
Come on, take another look.
Nah, I mean, maybe my mom has something, but I don't.
Right, not you, but it's there, right?
I don't even think she does. I think she finds it morbid.
It really is.
It is. Oh, I think it's fucked up. I think it's
Yeah.
fucked up. I think the fact that Mel Gibson movie made so much money is troubling to me.
Passion of the Christ.
It's troubling to me.
Great
anyway.
film. If you walk into any Catholic church, you'll see the Stations of the Cross. Each step Jesus took leading up to and including his crucifixion. I think we've really become desensitized to how horrible crucifixion really was. And I've often wondered, when Jesus comes back to judge and he sees everyone wearing around their necks the symbol of his time period's most infamous torture method, with him on it, what would he say? What would he think? After all, we don't wear little golden electric chairs around our necks, right? So let's be reminded of how inhumane crucifixion really was. But first, some history.
I think I say first a word from our sponsors.
No, we already went through that.
Yeah.
So crucifixion was invented either by the Phoenicians, the Assyrians, or the Persians, because they all practiced it, sometime around 300 BC. But it was really the Romans who enjoyed this form of torture, made it, dare I say, popular. It's said that the Romans crucified thousands upon thousands of people. Crucifixion was historically dealt out to marginalized populations, slaves, even after their freedoms, revolutionaries, foreigners, criminals, and other non-Roman citizens. And there were different forms of crucifixions. One's arms could be tied to a cross, the body weight supported by the arms and by the feet, which were nailed to the cross. Someone crucified this way could survive for several days before dying from exposure and dehydration and possibly asphyxiation. The asphyxiation part I'll explain here in a second. If you wanted someone to die quickly, like within 10 to 30 minutes, the most severe form of crucifixion pinned the victim's arms straight above their heads. This was done on a wooden pole instead of a cross.
Yeah, like a post.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now, it's next to impossible to breathe with the arms pinned above the head, so the victim would die quickly of asphyxiation. I mean, just listeners, try it. Stand up. Do this for yourself. Lift your arms straight up, way above your head, and try to breathe. It's hard, isn't it? Now imagine all your body weight is supported by a nail in your hands and in your feet. You could see how they die so quickly if left in this position. And it wasn't always a cross people were hung on. As I mentioned, people with their arms stretched above their heads were hung up on thick poles. And sometimes the cross, it wasn't a T shape. It was really depending on who was overseeing the execution, on what type of wooden device would be used. Sometimes it was just like a T instead of a cross, right? The top cut off. It all really depended. The verdict is out on whether or not prisoners' legs were straight when their feet were nailed, or whether their legs were bent at 45-degree angles when their feet were nailed. There are pictures out there depicting both. And if you ask me, I'm sure it was done both ways, because really, why not? It's believed that in some instances, a little seat was provided on the cross for the prisoner to kind of sit on. Made for comfort? Oh no. The prisoner being able to sit only allowed an ever so slightly bit of comfort for the prisoner. The seat's real intention was to allow the prisoner to stay up on the cross longer, thus suffering longer. And sometimes the seat would be pointed, sharply pointed. Try resting your weight on that. Damn. It's even believed that in some cases, the prisoner's genitals would be impaled prior to the prisoner and cross being hoisted up into the air. I mean, come on. And crucifixion wasn't reserved for just men. Women and children are believed to have been victims of crucifixion too. And that's the thing. Not a lot of evidence has been found to prove all this. Like at all. As of 2018, only a heel bone with a rusty, bent spike running through it and a skeleton showing damage to a heel bone consistent with crucifixion stories have been found by archaeologists. That's it. So because of these findings, experts do agree that crucifixion really happened, but just how widespread was it? All the evidence we have regarding crucifixion comes from written accounts from early Christian authors, like Josephus, Seneca the Younger, and Tertullian. Were they reporting on things that they were actually witnessing, or was it propaganda against the Romans? And of course, Matthew talks about Jesus' crucifixion in the Bible. Actually, Matthew mentions not only Jesus being crucified, but two other people, two rebels, two other criminals being crucified alongside him. You would think that if thousands upon thousands of people were being crucified, there'd be a lot more archaeological evidence. And there just isn't. I'm just saying.
Yeah, so I read about this too. Seneca, whose account I read more of. I should say, I read people reading him. Seneca during the Roman times, you mentioned the name. I think you pronounce it Seneca.
Seneca, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. The guy pronounces Seneca, so I'm just going with that name. So his from the excerpts I read on it, or listened to, I should say, let's be honest, was that it was doing the gladiator stuff. It was doing the people watching for a mass entertainment and without religion involved, because Romans it was more political for them than it was religious reasons. When they watched gladiators fight or whatever, what they did a lot of the times, here's where the crucifixions come in. No one called them though. Maybe that's where the confusion lies into whether or not they were official crucifixions or whether they were just being tortured on a post.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But they technically count as crucifixions. And I think that's where maybe the misinterpretation comes from. Because I do think there were a lot of them all over the place. Even the 16th century French, German, Prussian, not Germans are not around yet. That time also, they had a bunch of those too. But they just tied them to a post, and that's what they did. Fucked up shit to them.
Yeah.
And then they were technically left there, depending on what they wanted to do. But in Seneca, I think he described during their lunch hour, because every day when people were there watching the games, right? Either the real plays that do no harm, or the horrible things they did to animals, or the animals did to humans, or humans on humans. They would take all a communal break for like an hour or so to take lunch, but they still had to have something happen in the gladiating field, whatever, in the middle, right?
Yeah.
They still have to have some entertainment, and by entertainment I mean torturing and killing people. So that's when they did their executions. So people who stayed behind or brought their lunch over and still wanted to see more, even though it wasn't as popular as the other stuff, the other spectator sports stuff, they were still able to enjoy a few executions.
Wow.
And Seneca described that people would be able, and did a lot of times, since there's so few of them during the lunch hour, they were able to yell out suggestions to the executioner or the people doing it to do whatever they wanted to. And if the guy wanted to do it, he would do it. He would say piss on him, or say cut off his arm, and you just fucking do it, as they were tied there. So maybe even though they're not technically crucifixions the way we recognize it with Jesus Christ, maybe not technically in the way that is, but technically maybe they really are a type of crucifixion.
Could be.
I
just think you would find more archaeological evidence.
No, yeah, archaeological evidence. I mean, that's going to be less possible.
Right.
Right. But the written stuff is, it's more there for sure in written form.
Yeah. And is it written because it actually happened? Is it written because it's propaganda?
Well, that's the thing, is that the more sources we have about one area, one event, or one time period, the more we can ascertain as to who's being extra dramatic and who's being political, right? And you can just take the best and combine them.
Yeah.
So that's why I like the Roman one, because there's actually a few other sources that also say similar things, just in different ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to just keep the podcast moving, I'm going to go with the angle that crucifixion was in fact real, and it was rampant.
Yeah.
Now you have to understand that with crucifixion, torture started before the physical act. You were to be broken. They wanted you to be broken psychologically as well as physically, on the cross. And this started with being in prison the night before, or even weeks before, your crucifixion torture was to commence.
Yeah. Well, between trial and, right, sentencing and execution. There's always a little time.
They wanted you to think about it. They wanted you to just sweat about it. They wanted you to really understand the horrors.
That's funny.
That were to come.
My understanding, and this is based on other torture methods that you're going to go through, is that in really religious areas, you think of France, Prussia, even England, of course, or what was it called? It was called England back then, right? Yeah, it was. It wasn't, some people for sure, it was about, like, think about it, right? Kind of thing, like breaking them down. No. But it mainly, for a lot of people, especially the crowd, was about finding redemption in that time, to repent, so they die gloriously. So they died to go to heaven to repent their sins. Wow. And since all these people had Christian beliefs, 90%, 99.9%, a lot of people, that's what they were. That's what the crowd expected. They wanted to hear them repent as they were being tortured and almost killed. They got off on that in many ways and cheered louder for those who did the repentance versus the ones who rebelled all the way through, which are far and few between, from my understanding. Yeah, far and few between.
You put me through this, I'll tell you anything.
I'll tell you anything you want to hear, right? Yeah, and that's how we see it now. But back then, horrible. Since 99.9% of them believed in Christianity and heaven, hell, demons, all that stuff, is that it was just more. It's more black and white and that kind of thing. Like it was, they took it seriously. You wouldn't have said it otherwise. Yeah. There were there's a lot of accounts on, not just in crucifixion stuff, but in a lot of different kinds of executions that, people would go to their own executions with a smile on their face, waiting to be brought up by the Lord, waiting to go to heaven. They can't wait. Man. They want the torturing to start now. Like a lot of them had that. Not everyone, but a lot of them did.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, it is nuts.
The mindset back then.
Very different.
So crazy. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Gospel of Luke, this idea of that building up to game day, it's very similar to Jesus when he sweated blood in the Garden of Gethsemane as he sat and thought about his crucifixion the following day. It's really kind of what that's about, that waiting period, that sweating period, that build up.
It's funny you mentioned the blood.
Break them psychologically.
I also remember hearing that a lot of people in the stands would love to take some of the blood from the victim after, and they would think it would hold some sort of magical power, seeing as how much they repented, how much they're going to heaven. It's like I get part of that mentality, like a magical property that their blood might have had, and that some executioners will have their assistants take the blood and then sell it later.
Really?
Apparently, not everyone did that, and that happened later on. Not like it was towards the middle half, the second half of this age of horribleness.
Wow!
But yeah,
execution memorabilia.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, they thought it was just like magical, though, in a good way. It wasn't memorabilia to them. I think it was more like they wanted the power or something. Some kind. I don't know. It's hard to describe because you don't have a lot from back then. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, on crucifixion day, before anything, prisoners would be scourged again and again with whips containing little metal bits at the end. And the metal would slice deeply into the flesh and muscle with each whip crack. Then, because even the Romans thought crucifixion was too harsh, too brutal to carry out in the middle of the city, prisoners would be stripped naked and have their 100-plus pound wooden crossbeam, one of the beams on which they'd be crucified, tied to their backs. And they were then forced to carry that crossbeam to the outskirts of town. Sometimes they'd be forced to carry the entire cross on which they'd be hung, which could easily weigh over 300 pounds. Now, mind you, the prisoner, he's already weak from sleeplessness, from thinking about the upcoming crucifixion, and from pain and blood loss from the whipping. All the while, prisoners are carrying their own burden naked through town, people would line the streets and laugh and jeer and throw shit at the condemned prisoner, as the crowd was actually part of the torture process, ensuring utmost humiliation for the prisoner. And once at the crucifixion site, a cross would be assembled using the beam the prisoner carried. A sign reading the prisoner's name and the crime they committed, called a titulus, would be mounted to the top of the cross, so everyone knew exactly who was being crucified and why they were being crucified, for more humiliation. Once the cross was complete, the dehydrated, bloodied, humiliated, worn-out prisoner would then be nailed to the cross with 7-inch iron nails. But not like we think. Not like religious iconography depicts. These prisoners didn't have nails driven through their hands, like we see in images of crucified Jesus. Instead, nails were driven between two large bones below the wrist, so that when the prisoner and cross were hoisted upright, the wrist bones could bear the entire weight of the body, whereas if the nails had been driven through the hands, the palms, like we see in paintings, the weight of the body would cause the hand to rip right through the nail, and the body would flop forward. Not what they wanted. Not only would the wrist bones hold the body in place, but driving nails through this very exact spot would ensure you're not hitting major blood vessels, but did ensure you're hitting a major nerve, which would cause intense pain with little blood loss. Keep in mind, the victim is alive, and he's in agony while this is happening. It's the same with the feet. The nail in the feet wasn't done haphazardly. It was done exact, so that the nail would pierce between the second and third metatarsal, so the body weight could be held up on these massive foot bones. And here's the worst part. When crucified, breathing in is easy, but breathing out is very difficult. You see, when crucified, your arms are outstretched, so when you exhale, you actually have to work very hard to get the air out of your lungs. You'd have to pull or push your body up in order to expel all the air. Of course, this pulling and pushing to expel the air is being done against the huge nails in your wrists and feet. So just a simple act of breathing would have been an excruciating thing to do while nailed to the cross. And actually, a lot of crucifixion victims died simply because they couldn't expel air. I can't even imagine what it must have been like. Sometimes, just to end it, the Romans would break the legs of the prisoners hanging on the cross. Now the only way to get the air out of their lungs is to pull yourself up by the wrists. Really an impossible thing to do at this point. So you'd asphyxiate. And while all this is going on, of course, the person is baking in the sun, and the birds and the bugs are eating their flesh, destroyed by the whips and the nails, pecking at the eyes, and there's nothing they could do about it. And once dead, bodies would be left on the cross to rot, to serve as a reminder and a deterrent to others to not commit the same acts as the crucified person, lest you become the next to die by the cross. Fucked up. That's what we wear around our necks.
Well, your necks. Yeah, no, I've always thought it's, I don't know, this mourning thing for this horrible thing that happened, 2,000 years ago or more. It's, I don't know, it's really fucked up. I don't know.
Terrible.
But also
so
we got to realize something very important here is that we can be all high and mighty about our modern mindset these days as a World Cup population, right? And not do those things anymore and, right, be against all that, even animal cruelty, things that they were more into, right? Or they didn't care much about. But their time was way longer than ours. This was a mentality thought as completely normal as the sky is blue. back then for a longer time in our human history.
That's what's fucked up.
Than we have as quote unquote modern civilization. I mean, 1977, the fucking guillotine was last time.
Yeah.
I mean, we're like, and it feels like we're barely holding on sometimes, right? Sometimes, and I'm glad that most of us are definitely not into this kind of thing anymore. And we're moving, hopefully, better forward and whatever. But like more of them than there are of us.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So it's hard to get out of that mindset, but it's amazing that we can look back and say, like, man, that's fucked up. Right. And I can't wait to see what 2 generations from now to look back at what we did, and they're like, man, they're fucked up. You know,
electric chair, lethal injection.
Right. Oh, not even that. Other things like they had YouTube back then. Why would they do that to themselves? Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any more on the crucifixion though.
No, it's okay. Well, it continues.
Yeah.
It gets bad. The next method of torture we kind of already mentioned when we talk about the guillotine. We just mentioned it for a second. It's a nasty instrument of torture called the breaking wheel, also known as the Catherine wheel. The breaking wheel was used, we think, starting in the 8th century BC and all throughout the Middle Ages, which are the 5th century AD to the 15th century AD.
Medieval times.
Yeah, and into the early modern period, roughly the 1500s to the year 1800.
Right up until the Age of Reason.
That's right. Yeah, and that includes the time period in our world history that's the Renaissance period and the Age of Discovery, right? So unfortunately, this device was used for a really long time.
Very effective, though. Put on a great show with this fucking device.
Now, legend says that St. Catherine of Alexandria was executed on the wheel in 305 AD for refusing to renounce her Christian faith. Hence, the breaking wheel's alternate name, the Catherine wheel. And there were really 2 ways of torture and death on the breaking wheel. Being broken by the wheel and being broken on the wheel. Either way, it was a nasty bit of business.
Yeah.
In the early days, criminals were dispatched by having a heavily laden wagon run over them, crushing the condemned under the weight of the wagon wheel. Sometimes this killed the criminal outright, and sometimes it didn't. If someone survived being run over by the wheel, the wagon wheel, they were left mangled and helpless for days as animals and birds fed on them. And eventually they died from their wounds, or from exposure, or from both.
That's funny. I didn't read that one.
Yeah, not good.
I read the other one.
It's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Now, by the Middle Ages, breaking by the wheel involved a single wagon wheel, oftentimes ringed in iron, which was used to break a criminal's bones.
Yeah, this is the one I read.
Yeah. In this case, a criminal would be laid out, stomach down on a board. An iron-ringed wagon wheel would then be used to crush the bones in the victim's arms and legs. 2 blows to each appendage. 1 blow to the upper arm, above the elbow. 1 blow to the lower arm, below the elbow. 1 blow to the upper leg above the knee. 1 blow to the lower leg below the knee. Wash, rinse, and repeat for both arms and legs.
Yeah.
The final blow, the 9th blow, if you could imagine, would be to the chest, effectively crushing the rib cage and driving broken bones down into all the soft, squishy, vital organs necessary for survival. The French called this final blow to the chest the coup de grace, the blow of mercy. And as if this smashing and bashing wasn't enough, the broken criminal, either alive or dead at this point, would have his broken limbs woven through the spokes of the wagon wheel. Like fucking human macrame. The wagon wheel was then hoisted up into the air for carrion scavengers to ravish the victim's body for days as it baked in the sun and chilled in the night. Mind you, sometimes people were still alive as they were woven into the wheel and hoisted up into the air and left for days to die. Another version of being broken on the wheel was to tie a victim to the wheel, with each arm and leg positioned over the spaces between the wagon wheel's radial spokes. An executioner would then use an iron bar to break the arms and leg bones, using the space between the spokes, in other words, areas offering no means of resistance, to ensure the bones were good and broken. The victim would then be woven through the spokes, again, human macrame, hoisted up into the air and left to die, either from exposure, blood loss, eaten by prey, or a combination of all three. The breaking wheel was a very popular form of torture in France and Germany, and was reserved mostly for crimes of murder, but not always. The breaking wheel came to an end, as I mentioned previously, with the advent of the guillotine. Not a good time on the wheel. Not a good time at all.
No, not a good time. Part of something I found out about all this stuff is that the executional diary that I read, the accounts, is about a guy who did 394 executions during his lifetime.
Wow.
And about 200 more than that in just torture. Torture that doesn't include murder or executions, I mean. And the guy was meticulously good. He was probably the best in the business. And the best meaning that not just at how good he was at killing, it's easy to kill, especially back then, but how amazing he was at keeping them alive, following the instructions of because he was just following orders, really. I mean, not to say that's an excuse, but that's what he was there for. It's a job. It was his career. Anyway, I don't want to get too into it now because I'm going to get more into that kind of stuff later. But he was really good at breaking at the wheel, and among other things, especially beheadings. He was really good at beheadings too, with the sword, because all of this involves a lot of skill. I don't know if you know, but it involves a lot more skill than even one can imagine, maybe. And that is because every sentencing that goes down for the person is known to the crowd. And obviously the king or whoever is the judge and tells the executioner, I want, because of this penalty, he has to break bones in each limb, 2 times in the right arm, 4 times in the leg. Like, they were very specific.
That was dealt out by the judge.
And this guy was that good to do that and not kill the victim.
Wow.
Before he was told to, I want him to die after this point. And like that, and then he would just be true to business. He would never elongate anything. He wasn't like extra mean to child. He wasn't like that. It was like, it doesn't matter what you were, you'll die at the time I was told you should die.
Oh my God!
And the guy was really good at that. And
imagine going drinking with that guy.
And the guy, I have a lot of stories about that actually. He never drank. This guy
really
never drank a drop of alcohol. Back then, everyone was drunk, by the way. And furthermore, and for reasons I'll get to after this or later on, is that no one ever talked to an executioner.
Well, like a pariah kind of.
Yes, but much more than that.
Really?
I'll tell you about it.
All right.
It's really fascinating.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah. And this guy was super famous in Nuremberg, which was like the New York of its day because of the amount of business that increased so much, so many people, which means more executions too. He didn't start there. He started somewhere. I forget the other name of the city. I'm sorry about that, guys. But it was a humongous city full of a lot of great. Apparently, compared to most cities back then, this is right after medieval times, of course, is that it was the cleanest, most organized city, even though it's still pretty dirty compared to today's day.
Sure.
But it was one of the cleanest, most best kept cities in all of Europe, apparently.
Well, yeah, you drop a gum wrapper, you get fucking broken on the wheel.
The crime thing is really fascinating. I'll just tell you, right now, is that the crime thing differed in different provinces, of course. And the bigger the city you go, because that's where we get the most records, because most people live there, you got to understand that whatever they did, smaller villages or smaller towns almost always caught up to, they had more archaic versions of torture / executions. I say that because they were always back in the old days kind of feeling compared to then. So whenever the guillotine was started, trust me, those smaller towns, the smaller, you go farther down the more rural, whatever village areas, whatever they dealt with their criminals wasn't the guillotine. Not for a while. Anyway, and just because there weren't people there to record the events, they're still they caught up to it later.
Okay.
So most of the records we get is from bigger cities like Nuremberg, like I was saying. Anyway, the way crimes worked is that apparently they had this thing called blood law. They called it like a term that I think made in England, but I think the French did it, Prussia or Germany, and England, of course. And this stipulates that a crime, even as small as theft of a small item, or even a theft or what they call petty, was it petty?
Larceny?
I think larceny or petty something else.
Like theft, yeah.
Yeah, like anything that isn't crimes against the crown itself, which would be as petty treason. Petty treason is for crimes treason. Like petty treason. Petty treason back then was described as like a wife killing her husband.
Oh.
Yeah, major treason would be a crime against the crown in any way. Wow. That's how they differentiate those two things. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that even if you steal one apple off a cart, Aladdin style, the punishment was severe, and the way they rationalized it, politically speaking, back then is amazing. It's fucked up, but it's amazing. They rationalized it by thinking that we will never get you for all of your crimes. Most crimes out there will get unsolved, but if we catch you, we're going to do the severest punishments ever. And they went harder and harder on every single victim for the supreme purpose, if it wasn't Christian-based, by the way, for the supreme purpose of showing everyone else not to do it. And here's why. And they show it to the public. Damn. And that was why they went so hard on them. That's why Breaking the Wheel was so famous, among other ones. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a deterrent.
Yeah, it's a deterrent. It's exactly a political deterrent. Or a governmental deterrent. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I wasn't alive back then.
Dude, I know.
Especially when we talk about this next form of torture.
A podcasting would be very hard to do.
We couldn't do it.
No, I would say no.
Some people might consider this as torture, what we're doing right now.
To them? Yeah, to their ear holes? Yeah.
Oof, this next one.
Yeah.
Saw torture. Or death by sawing.
Ouch.
It's pretty straightforward given the name. In saw torture...
You watch Jigsaw movies.
Pretty much. But this is real. In saw torture, a living human being was sawed in half, either sagittally, meaning from the top of the head down through the groin, or from the groin to the top of the head, which effectively separates the body into two halves, a right half and a left half. Saw torture also could be performed transversely. So sagittally or transversely, meaning through the midsection.
Yeah, I would prefer that one.
Yes, in other words, slicing the body into a top half and a bottom half.
Yeah.
While they were alive.
Well, yeah.
Now, if you've seen Damien Leone's 2017 movie called Terrifier, have you seen this?
No.
Oh, man, it's great.
You seen it?
It's so campy and great. So Terrifier, which features a wonderfully horrible demonic clown named Art. In that movie, in an extremely gory scene, Art the Clown uses sagittal saw torture to kill one of his female victims.
You're kidding.
It's
Wait, up to down or down to up?
Crotch to head. Oh, dude.
That's the worst one.
Oh, dude.
That's the worst
one.
one.
They show the whole fucking thing.
No, they don't.
It's such a gruesome scene, and frankly, it's hard to watch. And listeners, if you haven't seen Terrifier, check it out. It's fucking gnarly. Oscar's doing it literally right now. Yeah. Sagittally kills this chick, dude. Oh, man. Anyway, saw torture, right?
Yeah.
Some say saw torture was invented mere weeks after the saw itself was invented, somewhere around 5000 BC.
Mere weeks?
Figures.
They're like, oh, idea.
Well, that's the thing. If humans create a useful tool, and one of the first things they do is saw a fucking person in half. Go humans! More realistically, saw torture can be traced back to ancient Rome, especially Rome under Emperor Caligula, as well as ancient Persia. The prophet Isaiah was supposedly sawn in half, as was Simon the Zealot, one of Jesus' 12 apostles. This method of torture was also practiced in Egypt and Morocco and in Asia and even in America. In 1757, a French officer was murdered by his men in a mutiny on Cat Island, or what's current-day Mississippi. Some of the mutineers were captured and brought to New Orleans to stand trial. 2 of the mutineers were actually put to the breaking wheel in New Orleans, and one was nailed into a coffin-like box and sawed in half, right there in my favorite place in the world, the old Vauquerie, New Orleans.
Damn.
So yes, this method was used all over the world, but it was most notably used in medieval Europe. Go figure.
No, yeah, of course, yeah, with the bubonic plagues and stuff. Yeah.
Medieval Europeans were assholes, man.
It was a horrible time. Horrible time to be in.
Yes.
I mean,
thank God.
The more I read about how people lived, whatever pigeonholing you think you're in when you were born, you have way more options now than what they did. What you were born into,
that's right.
You were fucked.
So see, this is how
you were fucked if you weren't lucky.
This is how I thought of Frost, how it could be worse, right?
Yeah.
As terrible as that, it could be worse. Right. Now, this obscene, and that's what this torture is, fucking obscene. This obscene method of torture was reserved for people accused of witchcraft or adultery, murder, blasphemy, or sometimes even petty theft. And saw torture could be done anywhere at any time, as the tools needed to carry out the torture could be found in almost any barn across Europe. Nothing extravagant and barely any assembly required. All you needed was some pieces of wood or some thick branches, a little bit of rope, and a 2-person saw. And boom, you're off and running, cutting motherfuckers in half. Basically, 2 pieces of wood are placed upright, and another piece of wood is placed on the top to act as a beam, kind of like the guillotine. Act as a support.
Yeah.
If you wanted someone to experience a prolonged, savagely painful death, you would tie the person's feet spread eagle to the top of the beam. Take a 2-person saw and slowly begin to saw the person in half, starting at the groin and usually finishing somewhere around the navel. Hanging upside down causes all the blood to rush to the head, ensuring that the victim being sawed stays conscious just that much longer. Nice touch, right? As for the spectators that gathered to witness the torture, they did show up. They got to witness blood and intestines drenching down over the victim's body and face. And if you really wanted to make a point, you wouldn't stop sawing at the navel. You'd finish the job and saw straight through the head, a la Art the Clown and Terrifier.
It's on Netflix. I added it.
It is on Netflix, yes. And if you wanted a fairly quick, yet still unimaginably painful death, you could flip the whole thing around. Victim's hands tied to the beam on top, feet tied to the wooden uprights. And take the 2-handed saw and begin cutting at the top of the head, straight through the skull and brain. Slowly, of course. And if you're feeling really randy, instead of starting at the top of the head or at the groin, you can instead saw the person through the midsection and watch their guts uncoil and fall to the floor as you're doing it. God, I'm hungry. Got any sausages? Whatever poison you choose, remember, saw torture must be done slowly. It's been reported that sometimes victims of saw torture would be alive for hours, seeing, feeling, and hearing everything as they were oh so slowly being sawed to death.
That would be god-awful.
Could you fucking imagine?
Does that ever happen in the Saw movies?
I don't think so. In the Saw movies, I don't think so.
It's funny how, I remember like bits of the first one, like the most popular one. But there is one, because there's a lot of torture in those movies.
Yeah.
So, it almost fits this kind of show, right?
Oh, sure.
There's one in one of the sequels, I don't remember because there's so many, that I remember very vividly. And that's one where there's this guy that has his limbs and his head tied up in like some sort of vice. All vices, right?
Yeah.
And the machine, with time, turns and forces all the limbs to turn all the way around.
Oh, I remember this.
And the bones are breaking along the way, and that felt very medieval and very like a breaking of the wheel type, because you think of the way he is positioned, like with his like a the Vitruvian Man or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And then obviously the last one was his head. After he experienced all those other breaks, the head will be the last, and then he'll die. I remember thinking that was the most excruciating looking one for me.
That's a breaking wheel.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's a good example of the breaking wheel.
Yeah,
breaking with the wheel. Of the
medieval Europe. Thank God.
Yeah,
thank God we're in 2020.
It was after medieval Europe too, but thank God it's been over. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, not at all. Now this one, Oscar, it has a cute, nice, friendly name.
Nothing is cute or nice or friendly.
The Breast Ripper. Like when I said that.
It sounded weird, so try again.
The Breast Ripper.
Okay, yeah, it didn't do any much better. What is that? Well, besides the obvious.
Much like saw torture, the name Breast Ripper says it all. This terrifying device, and again, listeners, make sure and check the show notes to see this thing. The Breast Ripper was used to rip the breasts off women accused of committing adultery or accused of having performed abortions, or women who were accused of blasphemy, heresy, or witchcraft.
Fanticide.
Fanticide?
Infanticide.
Oh, another word for abortion?
No, for women who kill their babies.
Abortion.
No, after.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, which was now they would diagnose it as postpartum depression.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a lot of stories about that, unfortunately. Now, they didn't use the breast ripper, mind you, so it doesn't fit with this particular number 5, right?
Right.
But,
it's fucked up.
I can tell you stories. But
it's fucked up.
Continue.
Now, guess where the breast ripper was mainly used? Medieval times.
I think you meant when.
In Europe.
You meant when. I thought you said where.
Oh.
I'm like, what the hell? Is this like a knock joke?
I mean, we're back to medieval times in Europe.
Yes.
The breast ripper kind of looks like a pair of barbecue tongs, but instead of having tiny, dull, partial teeth on the end of each tong, the breast ripper has 2 huge, claw-like spikes at the end of each tong. It's incredibly menacing looking.
What about the thing they used to flail people? Is it similar to that, or just similar looking?
No.
They call it something else, and they call it flailing.
It's
its own thing, okay.
Fucking ugly looking, man.
Because the one thing I did not see, where I think you did, is that I don't have any pictures. I just read and listened.
Gotcha.
I didn't actually
saw the pictures. I put the pictures in the show notes.
So I just used my imagination.
So Oscar, look at the show notes.
How dare you?
Now, to inflict torture, the breast ripper would often be heated to red hot. Mm-hmm. Then the device would be applied to each breast, and then the executioner or the torturer would squeeze and pull, searing claws gouging into soft breast tissue until the breasts were ripped off, usually with large portions of the upper torso along with it.
Yeah.
In cases where the breasts and pieces of torso were torn free, death was nearly instant. In cases where women survived the ripper, and they did, obviously they were scarred for life and unable to breastfeed. This was a means of torture to specifically attack and destroy a woman's most visible sign of femininity, the breasts. There's another version of the breast ripper. It's called the Iron Spider. In this after-school fucking fun time scenario, the breast ripper would be mounted to a wall, like a stone wall, like in a torture dungeon. It would be heated to red hot, and the breasts would be stuck onto the iron claws of the spider. And then the woman would be pulled away from the wall until her breasts were torn apart or off.
Yeah.
And in yet another version, we're geniuses, a woman would be forcibly dragged across a wall covered with iron spikes, which of course would shred the breasts and a lot of the woman too. Fuck, I'm almost sorry for talking about this one.
Yeah. It reminds me of
it's fucking true.
Like the rated R version of the Chicago Ripper Crew, because they did a lot of like breast stabbing and stuff like that. I remember that a lot of focus to the breast.
Yes.
That's my point. They fucked it in. But that was nothing compared to this right now. It feels like to me, because it looks like this is way more damaging. And the worst part is it's just a torturing method. It wasn't even the execution part. No. If there even is one,
just
they have to live with it.
Yes.
Think of it that way, right? It's even worse, probably.
And being a mother, breastfeed, I mean, that was a big part of medieval culture, and to be scarred and not be able to do your main function in medieval society.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a huge
what parts of the country did this to the women they thought that were witches? Do you have anything like that information-wise?
What part of the country?
Oh, part of the world, sorry. Not country.
Oh, this was medieval Europe.
Okay. So, 14th century? Oh, I'm just curious because I everything I read on it. I mean, this was after that point, though, is that they burned 90% of the people they thought was witches. Like women were burned a lot.
Oh yeah, that was another way. I mean,
yeah. No, I'm saying burning. I don't remember. I didn't read anything about the breast thing. Thank God.
Yeah,
but damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
All right, well, let's just move on from that one.
Yeah.
Here's a method of torture from ancient Greece that it really messes with me for some reason. It's called the brazen bull. Did you read about this one, the brazen bull?
I stay away from Greece.
It's also known as the Sicilian bull, and it was designed by Perillus of Athens sometime between 570 and 554 BC for the tyrant Phalaris of Archegas in Sicily, a Greek city-state at the time. Hence the alternate name Sicilian bull. And this guy Phalaris was a real jagoff. He was incredibly cruel, just loved to torture people. And he was said to practice cannibalism even. And he especially enjoyed eating babies. He's a fucking asshole. Now, in an awesome, sweet twist of fate, when Phalaris was overthrown by Temecula around 488 BC, Phalaris was tossed into the torture device he himself commissioned, and he was cooked to death inside his own brazen bull. Love the irony. So, what is the brazen bull, right? The brazen bull was made from bronze in the shape of a bull, and it was hollowed out with a door made into one side of the bull to facilitate the stuffing of a prisoner into the bull. Door would shut. Once the prisoner was secured inside the brazen bull, a fire was lit underneath the bull's belly, effectively roasting to death the person inside, but not right away.
Wow.
Remember, these methods of torture were best served slow.
Yeah.
The temperature inside the brazen bull would slowly rise, so the prisoner inside had time to reflect and beg and scream until eventually they'd be reduced to ash. Now, that's bad. But what's worse, I think, is that a system of tubes and stops were built into the bull's head, so that when the person inside was screaming as they were being cooked to death, their screams would be amplified by these tubes and stops, which on the outside sounded like an honest-to-God real bellowing bull.
You're kidding.
Bellowing in rage and anger.
What? It's
pretty creative.
It's like artistry of the macabre. It's
yes.
It's so...
Exactly.
So extra. That's extra.
Now, there are numerous stories of people being tortured in the brazen bull, but one story really sticks out for me. It's an incident out of ancient Rome that talks about the martyrdom of Placidus, a general under Roman Emperor Trajan. As the story goes, one day, while out on a hunting excursion, Placidus encountered a huge stag with a glowing cross burning between its antlers. And from the stag came a heavenly voice telling Placidus that he would suffer for Christ. Placidus immediately converted to Christianity, got baptized, and changed his name to Eustace. When Eustace refused to continue his old ways of worship, sacrificing and venerating many gods, Roman soldiers rounded up Eustace and his family and tossed all of them into the brazen bull. That's Eustace, his wife, and his 2 young sons, all thrown into the brazen bull and at once cooked to death. It's a fucking horrible story. Being a father, I can't even imagine what it must have been like for Eustace, right? He would probably have tried to position himself within the bull so that his children would be last to go, taking the full-on brunt of the searing bronze onto himself, acting as a shield for his children. Or would Eustace have wanted his kids to go first? At least they suffer in agony, slowly heating up as they watch their father and mother literally melt away. I can't even with this story. Anyways, after all was said and done, Eustace became Saint Eustace, patron saint of hunters, and he became one of the most venerated Christian martyrs of his time.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's the brazen bull.
And it was used more often than this? It was used often?
Yeah.
Or semi-often or something?
Yeah, and stories differ.
Yeah.
Historians question whether it was actually used or not, but there's a lot of writings from the time that describe these sort of deaths by the brazen bull. Or, just like crucifixion, was it propaganda? They don't know.
Also sounds like a steampunk apparatus.
Right. Yeah.
That's so fucked up. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's by far the weirdest one.
And you could look up...
Almost cartoony.
You could look up pictures of... There are brazen bulls in museums, but whether or not they were actually used, like in the story of Eustace and his family, it's fucking terrible. Historians aren't sure.
Gotcha.
But I figured to include it because it's pretty impactful.
It's very
when
unique,
you talk
too.
about it.
It's unique, too.
Yeah.
Number 4, right?
Oh, I lost count.
Oh, you don't have them numbered?
No.
Oh, dude, it's your first day. You have to number your top 10. Oh, you're 10. I mean, sorry.
All right. Now here's one that'll make you ask yourself just what kind of mind comes up with this shit. This next method of torture is called scapism, or just the boats.
Oh.
The boats. Now, a long time ago, in ancient Persia, on a blissful sunny day, a man was sitting on the bank of a beautiful river, eating grapes or fig leaves or whatever the fuck ancient Persians ate, while he was idly watching rowboats slowly pass on the lake's azure waters. For whatever reason, a creative bug bit that person, and he said to himself, "Dude, you know what would be cool as fuck? What if I took 2 rowboats? Yeah, that's it, 2 rowboats. And I flipped one boat upside down on top of the other. Yeah, that's good. I'd make sure they fit perfectly on top of one another. Then I could take a man, you see, and I stick that man in between the boats, in that cavity there. Trap him in there really good like. From there, let's see. I could then cut a hole in the top of the boat, so the guy's head it sticks out of the top. Yeah, that's good. Then I could feed the guy. I could feed him until he shits himself. Then I could feed him some more, and he'll keep shitting himself until he festers in his own shit. Then the maggots and the ants and the flies and the vermin, they eat him to death. It's fucking brilliant.
It's a long time.
Now, obviously, that's not the story how this thing was invented, the escapism or the boats, but really, are we that fucked up as a species to come up with something like this? Because what I described, as far as the device and the method of torture, as fucking ridiculous as it sounds, that's exactly what escapism was.
No, I'm not surprised that we thought of that.
A man is trapped between 2 boats with his arms and legs sticking out of the contraption. He would then be slathered in food waste, fed, gorged on milk and honey until he shits himself. Then he'd be left out in the sun to literally rot and be eaten by bugs and animals and disease. Just a horror show. Now,
it's like dead by filth.
Right. Your own filth literally rots you away.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? It's a movie called Hunger.
Hunger?
Have you seen it?
No.
It's about IRA prisoners in England during a certain time. I forget which decade. It's a fake movie, but based on real shit. And in a way, the movie portrays the beauty of the filth in regards to their imprisonment.
Wow.
And how they used piss and their shit to communicate or to communicate with each other, to rail against the establishment, meaning English guards.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucked up. It reminds me of that kind of like the way they lived and the way they lived and made it worse for themselves on purpose, just to gain some freedom or to gain a semblance of rebellion or something.
Wow.
Really interesting stuff. Anyway, but it's not the same as the boat thing. But yeah, anyway.
No, but
it reminds me of that.
See it. Yeah. That's what it was. Now, stories of escapism with the boats, they all seem to stem from Plutarch, a Greek biographer and essayist who lived from the years 46 to 120 AD. And his description of escapism, as written in his works, called Life of Artaxas. In Life of Artaxas, Plutarch writes of the escapism execution of a young Persian soldier named Mithridates. Here's what he wrote. Quote, now this is a quote, this is from Plutarch's writing. Mm-hmm. The king decreed that Mithridates should be put to death in boats, which execution is after the following manner. Take 2 boats framed exactly to fit and answer each other. Then lay down in one of them the malefactor that suffers, upon his back, then covering it with the other, so setting them together that the head, hands, and feet of him are left outside, and the rest of his body lies shut up within. They offer him food, and if he refuses to eat it, they force him to do it by pricking his eyes. Then, after he has eaten, they drench him with a mixture of milk and honey, pouring it not only into his mouth, but all over his face. Then they keep his face continually turned towards the sun, and it becomes completely covered up and hidden by the multitude of flies that settle on it. And as within the boats he does what those that eat and drink must do, creeping things and vermin spring out of the corruption and rottenness of the excrement, and these entering into the bowels of him, his body is consumed. When the man is manifestly dead, the uppermost boat being taken off, they find his flesh devoured, and swarms of such noisome creatures preying upon, and, as it were, growing in his innards. In this way, Mithridates, after suffering for 17 days, at last expired. End quote.
17, damn.
I mean, wow. Just wow.
That's a slow-ass, filthy death. Huh.
Never look at rowboats the same. Or milk or honey.
Probably not. I can't visit planet Plutarch anymore.
No, Plutarch.
Yeah. It's a great planet, though.
All right, I got to stop at some point here because the list of torture methods, it could literally go on forever.
I mean, yeah.
We're very creative at offing one another. So I'm going to cover 2 more methods of torture. Then I'm going to have to go watch some cartoons or something, clear my mind of all this bullshit.
Tom and Jerry.
Nastiness.
A lot of torture there, but it's more wholesome.
Now, this next one is called the Blood Eagle. Cool name, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, we know about the Blood Eagle from skaldic poetry, or the stories told by poets at the courts of Scandinavian leaders during the Viking Age, and some from the sagas, or the stories and histories composed in Iceland and Scandinavia, which talked about Viking voyages, Icelandic politics, feuds between Icelandic families, legends of saints and kings, and of course, the Blood Eagle. In fact, the sagas describe the Blood Eagle as the most painful and terrifying torture method ever imagined. And most Viking historians, they believe the Blood Eagle was actually a real practice. Now, listeners, I could show you the Blood Eagle if you really want to see it. Now, I'll leave a link in the show notes to a clip from the History Channel television show called Vikings. In a Season 2 episode of Vikings called Blood Eagle, a character named Ragnar Lothbrok performs the Blood Eagle.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, on a prisoner named Jarl Borg.
I never thought of that. I saw that episode.
Yes. It's a pretty brutal scene, even for the History Channel. And if you want to see what this thing most likely looked like, be sure to check the link. It's about a 5-minute clip. Now, the blood eagle was a ferocious form of torture reserved for noblemen or for anyone that committed a crime that revoked their honor. It's believed that not only was the blood eagle performed as a terrible form of punishment, but it also served as a sacrifice to Odin. So there's religious significance here as well. It's like a punishment and a ritual at the same time. Now, during the blood eagle ritual, the victim would have his hands and feet tied to minimize movement and the possibility of escape. The victim would then be laid in a prone position, stomach down, back facing up. Now, I'm not sure if he would be naked. Nothing I read was really clear on that point, but the shirt would definitely be removed. The torture would commence when the executioner cut a slit down the person's spine, vertically, with a sharp blade, either a knife or a sword. The back skin would then be pulled apart, exposing the rib cage, and then a small axe would be used to chop and separate each rib from the victim's spine. The executioner would then take hold of each rib and pull him back, further breaking the ribs, exposing all the soft, squishy, vital organs underneath. At this point, the broken ribs sticking out of the victim's back looked almost like giant skeletal fingers, or maybe even eagle's wing feathers. And in a final horrific move, the executioner would reach into the bloody cavity and pull out the lungs, and lay them on the victim's back in such a way as to make it appear as if the victim had wings. All this is done, of course, while the person being blood-eagled is alive.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of such a thing?
Well, I mean, it's we're sparking the memory of me watching that episode. At least
I've never seen Vikings. But
I mean, I don't know how much of it they showed, but some of it's coming back. I saw it when I came out, and that was a long time ago, season 2.
Yeah.
I'm only seen the first 3 seasons, I think. Yeah.
Crazy
stuff. That was a good show. I just forgot to. I never caught up to it, but yeah.
All right, let's talk about a fun little torture device called the Cradle of Judah, or the Judas Cradle. Have you heard of this one?
No.
Ooh. The Judas Cradle was invented during the 16th century, during the Spanish Inquisition, and therefore it was mainly used during the late medieval period. Go figure. The Judas Cradle was a torture device shaped like a very pointy pyramid at the top and supported by 4 legs at the bottom. Very pointy. The pointed pyramid could be made of metal or wood. And that's all it was. It's like a stool with a pyramid sitting on top. But don't let its simplicity fool you. This thing was brutal. It was used mostly to extract information from someone or to punish heretics and traitors. Hence its name, the Judas Cradle, named after the most infamous traitor of all, Judas Iscariot. So how'd this thing work? Well, first, a victim would be stripped naked. Next, to ensure maximum discomfort if the victim should try to shift their weight or make their imminent torture more bearable, their hands and feet would be bound. And mind you, as we go through this, victims could be male or female. Victims of the Judas Cradle could be male or female. The victim would then be tied into a harness. You gotta appreciate the ingenuity here. I mean, really, from medieval times. They'd be tied into a harness, lifted up, then lowered onto the point of the Judas Cradle, making sure the point was inserted directly into the anus or the vagina. Once the point was inserted, the ropes would slacken just enough so the victim's full weight was pressing down onto the cradle's sharp point. The victim then would be left impaled like this for hours or for days, as their own weight and gravity worked together to slowly settle the anus or the vagina further and further down the cradle's sharp tip. When the victim shifted or shimmied to try and make the torture a little less unbearable, the motion would cause even greater pain.
Yeah.
A lot of times, just to make a point, pun, weights would be added to the person's arms and feet to make the Judas Cradle's point penetrate the orifice quicker and to ensure maximum pain.
Oh, or it could be the opposite too. Get through the turmoil faster. Like one day sooner, you'll die.
Right, yeah.
Something like that too. That could be seen differently too.
Sure. Sometimes oil would be added to the point, allowing for easier insertion and slippage. Yeah. This is what we came up. I mean, fucking hell. It said that the cradle was never washed either. So if there was a chance that the victim did survive, and some did, they'd catch one hell of an infection. Could you imagine how nasty this fucking thing was, never being washed? All the shit and blood and innards.
Pretty sure infection is the last thing on their mind.
Yeah.
I don't think they even knew what infection was back then. No, they didn't. That's to a smaller degree, but yeah.
Sometimes the executioners, they get bored. So they'd add their own fun little twists. I mean, hey, you gotta keep it interesting, right? The executioners would quickly raise and lower the prisoner on and off the point, like a bouncing action. Nice. Or they'd raise the prisoner off the point for a bit, just to give him a little breather. Then ever so slowly, they'd lower the victim back down onto the point. This, of course, to ensure maximum pain was achieved and to prolong the torture. What do you think?
I'm imagining it. This one I didn't read about, at least not across the stuff that I read.
Yeah.
But yeah, does that sound familiar? I think I've seen, I don't know, like, I feel like I've seen a diagram of it or something, or I've seen like in a museum or something. I feel it sounds familiar, the description you made of it. But yeah, that's messed up, man.
Who comes up with this shit?
Dude,
right.
Well, humanity, man.
Humanity.
We are our own worst enemy.
Absolutely.
And you think of, is that the last one?
I have one more.
Okay, I
said there were going to be two more, but I got one more.
You fucking liar. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So the Judas Cradle, I thought was going to be the last one, but I got one more. It's a bonus, right? Making the methods of torture we discussed tonight an even 10. You can never say we don't give our listeners their ears worth.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
Wow, wow, wow. Now, I've included this little ditty because it's really similar to the Judas Cradle, so I had to cover it. I had to include it. It's called the Spanish Horse. You're Spanish.
No, I'm not from Spain.
Oh. Made popular during the Spanish Inquisition, go figure.
So bloody.
Just like the Judas Cradle, the Spanish horse was used to punish those accused of heresy and witchcraft.
Yeah, heretics and witches got it the worst.
Yeah, and maybe I should have talked about this earlier, but heresy, in case you don't know, or being accused of being a heretic, it's when someone has religious beliefs that are contrary to the current popular accepted belief system, especially when it comes to Christianity.
Yes, that is defined as a heretic, and a lot of the punishments were extra harsher for them.
Absolutely.
Almost always, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah. More than a murderer, more than a child killer, more than a...
They did not fuck around with religion, man.
Same thing with, obviously, witchcraft or thought believed to be witches, immediately dispatched.
Yeah.
And a lot of them had the stupidly simple but simply stupid belief that, like, for example, like, they'll throw in what they consider to be a witch in the river. If she floats, she was innocent, but she's dead. If she sings, that she was telling the truth, or something like that. And it's so stupid because they both end up with that anyway. It's so fucking dumb. Anyway. Or the burning thing will happen too. Like, well, if she's a witch, she wouldn't.
She'd put out the flame.
If she put out the flame, or she wouldn't feel the pain.
Yeah.
If she feels the pain, then we know she was innocent, but it's too late.
It's right.
It's
exactly.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, humanity. All right. Anyway, the Spanish horse. The Spanish horse was designed to destroy a person's genitals. These people love to fuck with the genitals. Sigmund Freud much? The Spanish horse was composed of two long wooden or metal planks assembled in such a way that the spot where the two planks joined together formed a long, sharp point. And sometimes, just for fun, little metal spikes would be added to these pointed planks. For support, the plank sat atop what looked like two construction horses. And sometimes a cute little horse's head would be fashioned to the front of the device, so the thing really looked like a horse, complete with 4 legs, a long, pointy, studded back, Now, those accused of heresy or witchcraft would be stripped of clothes and sat straddled atop the horse, 1 leg on each side of the device. And just like the Judas Cradle, a man or woman woman's private parts would be mangled by the sharp edge of the horse's back, or by the sharp edge or the little spikes that were added to the horse's back. Weights would be applied to the victim's legs to speed up the destruction of the most sensitive parts. The perineum would be destroyed. That is, the area between the anus and the scrotum, or the anus and the vulva. I think we call this the taint.
Yes.
Right? Fuck. There would be massive blood loss and excruciating pain as gravity and body weight work together to slide the victim further and further into the horse's back, the sharp edge acting like a knife. Most stories I read about the horse mentioned that a lot of victims would survive, although they would be horribly scarred and wouldn't be able to walk for days or months, depending how badly they were damaged and whether or not their tailbones were mangled. And just like the Judas cradle, this thing wasn't washed after each use. It wasn't cleaned. There was no Fabuloso back then.
Wow. Why that one of all the ones?
Because you're Hispanic.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So if the person did survive,
I would have said Senor Clean.
the chance for one hell of an infection, possibly a fatal infection, was almost guaranteed. Other stories say that people were left on the horse for so long with so much additional weight added to their legs that they'd be completely severed in half.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
10 torture methods, Oscar, right there.
Yeah.
How long are we at for this episode?
It's like almost 2 hours. Well, no, just this section, by the way, not the intro.
Intro and music.
It's more.
Our songs.
Well, the music's like 30 seconds, what a piece. That's not much. I bet it counts for 2 minutes worth of time, maybe at most.
Did you like this?
Yeah, no, I'm super fascinated by this because humanity is always, human mind and customs and mob mentality and cultures is insane. It rules us all. And there were times, and in many ways people consider now times to be pretty insane, just in different reasons. Back then, this was one of their insanities, you know? And like I said, mainly focus on Central to Western Europe. During the 16th, 17th century, and a little bit of 15th. And, so what I found there, I think you'll find pretty fascinating, is how I told you the bloodline was and stuff like that. But, like, a lot of people, you mentioned the hammer thing at the beginning of the show regarding your ex-best friend, or ex-good friend of yours.
Yeah.
How he used a certain hammer in his crime. If it was in the 16th century and used a hammer to, let's say, beat up someone or whatever, he would then, part of his punishment would receive the same treatment, just harsher. There'd be a lot of eye for an eye. This is a lot of time, the justice back then was met with eye for an eye kind of mentality. For example, like, if you were an arsonist, you would burn to death.
Wow.
Things like that. They would be creative that way. Well, not creative that way, but they would be literal that way. Or sometimes they would torture you in their own way that they want, or that the king decides, or the magister, whatever the hell, wants you to get tortured or killed. And then right after your death, they will do the honorific, like, symbolism of your crime by then, like, if you're an arsonist, burn your body. If you're, ding you with a hammer on the head after your death, if you committed a murder with a hammer.
Wow.
For example, they will go that far.
Rapist, fuck with your genitals.
I don't know.
Tear up your balls.
Yeah, I didn't read that specific example, but I'm sure it was done, Jay. I mean, look at all these examples. I'm sure it was done. How do you not, right?
Right, yeah, after all this.
Right, that's like nothing. That's like Disneyland compared.
We could literally imagine right now. Anything we could imagine right now is probably done.
Yeah,
Rip off the eyelids, guaranteed it's done.
Done. That's easy.
You know what I mean?
That's done in my sleep. It's funny because without eyelids you can't sleep.
But that's how fucking bust out your teeth.
Yeah.
Done. Guaranteed it was done.
So the thing I was telling you before about the executioner lifestyle is super fascinating, and specifically of the one I was reading, his last name was Schmidt, Franz Schmidt, and the Schmidt family. A lot of them, and this is where some of the stigmatism, not stigmatism, that's not the right word. I keep thinking that word. Some of the legends of how executioners were seen and how they're seen in popular culture, i.e. movies or whatever, especially Mel Brooks's Igor. Or Igor.
Oh, yeah, right.
He's
Igor.
kind of a representation of old executioner life. Like he's supposed to be one, or he comes from a family of them. And the reason he looks so like that is because in reality, a lot of executioner, because they all have their own families too, they are, for the most part, pretty inbred. They mix it up with each other. Now, cousins and whatnot I'm talking about, not often it was like straight up your own family members from the immediate family. But it was a lot of crossbreeding because a lot of families had to stick together. Now, this was forced upon them by societal, like, ways. Not exactly like laws, but rules. Apparently, they were seen as pretty magical or nefarious, or both, really. They were seen as both an instrument of God to be revered and respected highly, Jay. They were respected highly, but at the same time, completely shunned and anti-societal and unworthy of being around everyone else.
Wow.
They were seen as, like, in many ways, lower
but...
cost, even though they got paid more than most people got paid.
No shit.
Yes. Now, the money back then meant little. What you did for the money meant more back then than it is nowadays. Like I always say, if you make $1 million making a pineapple pen
Oh, no, you didn't.
I didn't. Right? Then everyone will be like, dude, you made a lot of money. Congrats. No. Back then, you'd be like, that guy is a piece of shit. Don't talk to him. I don't care how many millions he's got. That's how it was seen, right? So a lot of the reverence, that respect, even if it was bad or negative, comes from it was manifested by people not wanting to be touched by executioners.
Okay.
And everyone knew who they were. They were not hide their face. I know you think of the Hood and stuff like that. That did happen, but that was during the guillotine days. Before that, when it was more popular, with this guy who did 394 kills before pre-guillotine times, he would always show his face, and that was on purpose. You should know who this member of this guy is, who's on the payroll for the government, who got paid a lot. Sometimes on commission, sometimes when he starts off as a traveling, like, executioner from town to town to town. And then before this one guy settled down in Nuremberg. It was amazing times, and if you were touched by him, in any way, even by accident, doesn't matter what reason, you're instantly a pariah, and most times would just banish yourself away from the city.
Holy
it will
shit.
never be seen again, because you will not be able to hold court, a better job. You will not be able to have friends.
Because
you wouldn't be able to eat, drink with anyone. And the executioner and his family all led that life. They all lived only with each other. They wouldn't talk to anyone else. They were not allowed to.
What the fuck? It's crazy.
No one will talk to them. Talking to them means that you are a pariah. You're like as low as a whore or whatever, but like in a worse or different way, you know?
Yeah.
It's insane back then.
Wow.
Because you're that close to death. You are the person, like the Caro, the ferryman, right? You're that person that takes a person from life to death. And that was both feared and hella respected in a weird combinational negative way.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of takes of that. And that's why they had to inbreed with each other. You know what I'm saying?
Because no one else would fuck him.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this guy was the best. Apparently was really one of the best. For a lot of reasons that I don't have to get into because it's about one person and we're talking about generalities here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how the lifestyle was for a lot of them back then.
Could you do it?
Do what?
Executioner?
Well, this guy started off as a kid. Oh, like I said, his father was an executioner. His grandfather was an executioner. Like, you were born into it.
Come on, son. Let me show you the family trade.
I think in 19, he did his first execution.
Wow.
And he was an apprentice before that point with his father. For I don't know how many years. I think it was 12.
Huh.
12 on. How about back then, 12 and meant or 18 probably. If you think of terms of how people lived.
Yeah.
It meant not 12 years old today, but 12 years old.
So could you do it?
No. I mean, if I was born into it, of course I could do anything.
I couldn't do it.
Of course you could do it.
Well, maybe if I was born into it,
Yeah.
raised from an infant to love the sword and the
That's
axe.
exactly what.
But
yeah, apparently he got his job through a very swift political like overthrow he did on the guy who was the main executioner at the time, who was like related to him. He was like a second uncle of his because they're all related. And it was great what his father did, and he did the much he could possibly do to gain respect for his name. And he did have some kids and stuff, and shortly after his retirement, whoever replaced him, who wasn't his kids, like fucked up royally on like a beheading that led to like a controversy because it was a big famous person. It was this lady who tried to commit murder to one of the noblemen or king. I don't remember all the details. There's a lot of famous murderers and crimes back then. But yeah, he tried that. He tried too many swings on the sword. It led to catastrophe. And apparently, when an executioner fucks up, especially with a beheading, because when the victim moves, it's much harder to lop it off in one chop. It's actually very hard. There's actual skill involved to do the sword properly. And if you did too many times, you're allowed to usually have 3 strikes, kind of like baseball. You're allowed to have 3 chops to get it right. And if you don't, chances are the crowd will turn against you. And oftentimes, executioners will get killed on the stand.
Dangerous job, too.
Very dangerous job.
Wow.
There's a lot more, man. But I guess I'll stop there for now. There's a lot more.
It's so interesting. Do we have a part 2 of this coming up, or what? Just talking about
I kind of want to almost, right?
Yeah, all right.
But they're a very fascinating career. People.
Wow.
Almost like a race of people, because they were just so excluded from everyone else. Now, by the time guillotines were popular, they were more considered like technicians, because they weren't as useful. They don't have to be as skilled anymore. They were just people. Those people were allowed to hang out and mingle with the rest of humanity, because they weren't instruments of God. They weren't the bringers of death. They weren't harbingers of anything. They had no curse to them. They were technicians. They knew how the guillotine worked.
Pull the rope.
Well, pull the rope, also like maintain it and whatnot.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it. They weren't seen the same way. But so by the time the guillotine came around, really, I mean, the executioner lifestyle had left its heyday, in a way.
Shit.
In more than one way. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't take that angle. I didn't take the executioner's angle.
Yeah, no, I was super fascinated about that.
Huh.
Yeah, that's what started me.
Maybe we'll follow this up with...
Oh, man. No, I hope I didn't
follow up tomorrow, next episode, but...
No, I hope I didn't give away too much then.
No, I'm sure we can find more.
Yeah.
But that might be a future episode.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
You're welcome.
Well, Oscar, what do you think? Should you take us home?
Yeah, I would say this one's pretty long.
This is really long.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go home.
There you go. What else? What else was interesting on the Oscars?
Let's see.
Elton John was pretty cool.
So
kind of neat.
So I saw that movie, Rocket Man, in theaters, and I remember hearing that song, and everything, and I didn't know that was an original song he wrote for the movie. I thought it was one of his hits, many hits from the past that I just forgot about, because there's bound to be many songs that I've never heard of, because he's done so many.
Yes.
So like. Because he covers decades, that guy. And then when I found out he's nominated for this, I'm like, holy shit, that was an original song. That motherfucker still has it, because it sounds just like his old hits. It didn't sound like a modern, shittier version of it.
True.
Like, it was great. I was glad he won then.
That was good.
I liked, even though I hated, I know, not hated, strong word, even though I didn't super like Frozen 2 and that song.
Oh, when they did
the song with all the other voice actors, that was amazing.
That was cool.
I didn't like Frozen 2.
I didn't like it that much. It was fine. It's a fine movie.
Not as good as Frozen.
Yeah, I would say so.
You know. But, yeah, that was good.
Wait, what song?
I didn't care for that song.
It's,
Let It Be?
No. It's,
Into the Unknown?
Into the Unknown, yeah, thank you.
I missed that. Why didn't
yeah,
you tell
girl.
me?
Oh, yeah, you did. She was at work. She came later. That's right. So, honey, let me describe this for you.
Yeah, this is cool.
The singer came out, the actual main singer.
Mendez?
Something. Menudos.
Yeah.
So she came out and started singing. She did that, the first 2 verses, something like that?
Yeah,
the first 3 verses. And then, out of nowhere, with the camera, the way they did it, it kind of hid it from them. Another singer in a different language, also beautiful, starts singing the next verse in her language, German or whatever. And they go through all the languages that the movie did, that they did for other countries.
Yes.
a lot of
All the
languages.
Elsas from
Some of
other
the countries I've never heard of.
Yeah.
The Spanish, from Croatian to everything.
That's it.
French,
Russian,
it was
Polish,
German,
Russian,
Polish,
whatever.
Polish.
I
Yeah,
need to watch that.
and
It was
a
cool.
great. It made the song way better.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Way better. Yeah,
Into the unknown.
yeah.
So, yeah, that was cool. Eminem could have cared less.
Well, I love Eminem. So
I love Eminem.
I like Eminem, but I didn't like the performance. Like, I'm convinced he was lip syncing the whole time.
I'm not saying that maybe he was or wasn't. I just kind of funny that I don't know why they brought him in there. Look, I love Eminem, but I don't
He
think
just dropped like 2 albums.
no.
Damn, girl said dropped. He dropped that shit.
He did. He dropped one
No,
without even announcing it.
the thing is,
like a week ago.
I think it's spelled on his shoes too.
He was nominated like best song
Oh yeah, a long time ago.
when 8 Mile came out.
Yeah, and he won.
for Lose Yourself.
He won, but he wasn't there.
Yes, right. So now I'm finally here.
Yeah, but that's
Hi guys.
that's not a good reason to put him in. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
all it was.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It seems like a publicity thing.
That's
than
why
it
I
is.
like MGK.
That's not why you love MGK.
I like
you
MGK.
love these people for their talent, not for how bad they are at publicity. You piece of shit.
What was that tweet?
That's it's just the thing telling me that it's 2 fucking a.m. already.
Yeah, you guys should record.
Yeah. Every hour and the hour that tweet at me. I'll silence it for the show.
Yeah, so
Bitch, you
Eminem.
better.
So do you like Rap Devil or Rap God?
Rap God.
Do you really?
What's
I
that?
think Rap Devil is pretty good.
What's that?
That's by MGK.
Fucking Christ, Jay.
That's my guy.
Jay, one more time. We're not doing a fucking bonus episode. That's it. I'm not doing it.
But that was so there was Rap God, and then MG came out with Rap Devil.
You know, I usually hit my friends. I've never hit you before. But there's always a first time for everything.
Love it, Jay.
You guys really haven't heard of Rap Devil.
I don't care.
But I mean, if you follow Eminem,
I'm fucking with you. No, I don't follow Eminem the way I used to do. I love his first 4 albums.
Yeah.
I stopped there.
okay,
You know what I'm saying?
But you
Yeah.
haven't listened to any of his new songs?
No, I've heard here and there, and I like them, but I don't like, you know, it's like, it was a time and a place, and that's what I love and nostalgic
I
for.
like Shady.
Okay.
And I'm
Or
done with it,
Shady
you know.
more than...
And I'm also not very good with music in general. All I know is that MGK is a piece of shit. That's all I really know. The rest of it is, you know, here, there, here.
Do you know he was? No. But I mean, just because. Stop! Don't laughing at me. I'll screw up your colors. He was.
Screw up your colors.
He
At least
was
he's not
Tommy Lee in the Motley Crue movie. I didn't know this.
Yeah, I knew that too.
You didn't know that?
I saw that movie, The Dirt.
Yeah, that's it. I saw the movie. I didn't even realize it was him.
Oh yeah, because he's such a good performer, right? He hid behind the veneer of being. Now you're fucking giving him credit for something that he's not even fucking famous for. Sorry.
But apparently, he's been in like 10 movies. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
About my MGK. That's what I call it.
Thank you, honey. I prefer that right now.
All right.
It's a bit, actually. I really don't care about MGK that much.
No,
but it's a bit.
So, yeah, I drive a lot.
So you listen to a lot of MGK?
And
I'd be audiobooking all the damn time.
And Eminem. So it was Rap God, then Rap Devil, then Kill Shot. See, I know this now. Because I drive a lot.
Are you going to say the Nina Pinta Santa Maria? You were supposed to take a swig so you can spit it out.
The Pinta of the Santa Maria.
Yeah, remember that?
What?
Shut up!
That's like from 1997. We're talking about MGK in Cleveland.
And there's nothing good in Cleveland.
Cherry Thinglings.
That's from Indiana. I really was hoping you had some sangria in your mouth when I said that, but you fucked it up.
Sorry.
Or I did it too soon, I guess.
Too soon, honey.
Is this an Oscar?
We have 39 minutes of outtakes.
Oscar, this is an Oscar.
What's an Oscar? That's a fucking popcorn.
That's an Oscar.
No, that's not an Oscar. That's a CNET token.
That
an
right there
Oscar.
tells me that kids were in here.
Yeah, no, we talked about this that one time. Yeah, last time.
Yeah.
That one time.
All
Are they
right.
playing Seen It?
I think something. They were seeing something. Don't let me forget during break. Gotta plug that in.
We've been doing so many breaks. Okay, I'm not really rushing you.
I am, though, because I want to sleep eventually tonight.
You sleep in the car.
Why? Do you have work?
No, I don't. But
Tomorrow's our Valentine's Day,
that
technically.
it's our Valentine's Day date. He needs to get an oil change, and I need to stop at Sprint
Okay.
along with a date.
All that still doesn't mean that we don't have time for that.
We're gonna wake up at 3, honey.
Where are you guys going for your Valentine's date?
Yeah, where are we going?
Okay, I guess I can tell you.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
it's
don't.
basically-
You don't have to.
Oh no, it's not a huge thing. It's not like a place she's ever been to
It's not
before.
the Sugar
It's
Shack,
a
is
few
it?
days.
It's not the Sugar Shack, is it?
Sugar
Well,
Factory.
ask him.
I fucking hold. Oh, Sugar Shack was a gay club.
I'm sure it still
Then
is.
I hope so.
I'm sure it still is.
There was a lot of dicks.
And I would get way more play than you.
It's true.
You-
True.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, if I wore like really colorful makeup, they'd be on me too, but for different reasons.
I think you need a penis.
Very, very matter of fact, she said that.
On me for different reasons.
Oh, okay.
Different reasons than the penis.
All right, so let's find out where you're going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's find out.
Yeah, I was about to say it.
Where
Now
you-
I lost interest.
Is
No, it's Francesca's. It's a very
in Palatine?
No. It's by Oak Park.
Wait, is that
The
the
town
place that
over
you
Oak
took
Park?
all your ex-girlfriends?
No,
What town?
it's the one after that is Forest Park, I think, or is it something
Oh,
Forest?
okay. Because
Lake Forest?
and the only reason I'm saying is, remember Mike McDermott?
Yeah.
He opened up a franchise.
Oh no, not that one. Yes, you told me that.
I boycott that fucking place.
Oh, why?
Because I hate him.
Oh, I didn't know you hated him.
Kind of.
Oh wait, I think you might
Yeah,
have
we
told
had
me
a
that.
falling out. Yeah,
Oh yeah, I
but
think you might.
Forest
have told
Park is nice. That's good.
me. Yeah, that's the only one I've been to before.
Good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What is it? What kind of food is it?
Italian. Francesca's.
What the fuck? Yeah,
What do you think,
Francesca's
Hispanic
Italian.
burritos.
Maybe.
Tostadas.
It's Polish. Wait, just go to other countries too. You know.
Fucking pierogies.
Pierogies, nice.
Maybe.
Gosh galash. Gosh galash.
That.
Borscht.
Borscht. There you go.
Borscht.
There you go.
Paprika.
So
Dishes.
it's Italian. Is it like nice Italian? Or?
Oh, it's hella nice. Hella moody. Best gnocchi I've ever had in my life.
Ooh, I love gnocchi.
Wait,
I love that
you're
shit.
taking me to like a fancy place?
Yeah, I could dress up.
Nice. Oh, there
Well,
you
not
go.
right now. What the fuck?
I almost didn't wear a bra, thank God.
Oh,
I mean, you don't have to wear a bra for this place.
all right.
Really, Jay?
Everyone take it easy.
The older you get, huh? The more off the lawn we are.
Yeah, get
Oh my God, I have the perfect few dresses I could wear.
wear a bra and get off my lawn.
Yeah, fucking hippies.
Oh no, I hate wearing bras. I only wear them when I go to work.
I hate when she wears bras too.
But, I mean, whatever.
Hey, oh wait, why would we ask a guy? I was gonna ask him about the whole sag, non-sag bra thing, but why would he know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he does have tits, but not that kind of tits.
Women who wear bras, like especially when they go to sleep, like overnight or just like long periods of time, their boobs tend to sag more
Really?
and earlier too. Yeah.
Ooh.
And Oscar doesn't believe me.
No, I didn't say believe it. I just thought I thought it wouldn't
I
because
thought- yeah, I
the
thought
whole
it
thing
would
is to
be
keep
the
them up.
Opposite.
Right.
thought it would be
Logically
opposite.
thinking, I would think that. That's why I said I didn't say I didn't believe you.
Oh, well, you
There's
said
plenty of things I don't believe.
Bras
but-
make boobs sag?
within time, yeah. If you like overwear them.
Girls shouldn't wear bras.
in general, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
Take them off.
That's
Or at
hippie
least
talk.
like trim.
Burn that.
That's
right.
hippie talk.
Burn the bras.
Yeah.
Free the nipple.
What?
Free the
Free
nipple.
the nipple. Have you never heard of that movement?
No.
It's when women just like decide to expose their nipples.
He's not
and,
into
like,
the 51%
proud.
that much.
This was from the 60s. You realize this, right?
They still do this.
Good for them.
Yeah.
I think it's great.
That's good for them.
I'm not arguing the point.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize that bras would make them... I thought bras kept them firmer.
That's why
In
I
the
said.
moment, yes, they do.
Well, yeah, I would hope they do the
That's
job.
what counts. The moment counts.
Right.
I don't care about 20 years from now.
It's like if you wear a girder, let's say every day, 8 hours a day for work, every single day.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll give you some sort of shape that befits if someone wears a girder all the time.
Yeah.
You would think that that logic will apply to a bra. She's saying it doesn't.
Okay.
Where did you hear this?
I read about it.
Where?
People told me to.
SAG Monthly?
Um,
Sorry. Screen Actors Guild Award.
I've had multiple people tell me this whenever I told them that I would wear my bras to sleep.
This is all great material for outtakes. I'm about to split it for the
It weakens the
Patreon
muscles
too.
that hold up the breast because it holds it up for you. That your muscle doesn't work.
Oh, thank you. See,
So the boobs,
I just wanted something logical to understand this.
the boobs atrophy.
Yes.
Wow, that's a strange thing.
You don't know what I think.
Atrophy is like when you don't move, like when you,
Right.
like if you're in a coma and you're laying down the whole, every minute of every virus, you're laying down the whole time. They have to move you so you don't get bed sores from like atrophy, which is like your muscles not moving at all.
People in space.
It dies off
right?
that way. Like it's not good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
People in space, yeah, exactly. They need to like come back and
Yeah.
not detox, but whatever.
Fucking work out kind
Work
of,
out.
you know.
Yeah.
So women, take off the bras, please. Microphone. Talking to you.
Who's Mike? Okay.
See, that's the problem with you guys coming. I keep always thinking it's a tarot card.
It is.
Well, it's working clearly.
Yeah.
It's clearly working on you.
That's why you guys got to come over more often, because when you finally do come over, it's catch-up time.
That's true.
I think it's more catsup.
Catch-up.
That's a dad joke for you, Jay. You can use that.
Yes.
No.
Lexi, oh my God.
When can we come? When can we possibly come over that isn't when you're not busy, which is only like one day a week today?
I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah. So I don't see when it's going to be possible, Jay. Unless we actually plan it or something. And if we plan a movie or something, forget it. You can go to sleep.
Dude, I passed out so fucking quick tonight.
Yep.
Wow. But I'm awake now. I'm here in the now. What kind of vape juice?
Oh, it's
Blueberry cake is mine.
Oh, okay, nice.
not. First of all, he asked me.
I don't care.
Okay. It's called Apple Pear Dice.
I see what they did.
See what it is? This was one of those, like, it's like a 2-pack of these two, and it costs about the same as a normal thing, so it's like a cheaper.
Do you like it?
Pineapple.
I like it
Apple
fine.
pen.
I like it fine. It's my in-between juices, because I just finished the last one.
I like that gun.
Apple
The
pen.
gun
Right?
is cool.
So cool.
yeah.
You said you don't have that anymore? That's right, because Katie gave you that one.
I mean, I literally just threw it in my wastebasket in my office. Lexi, that is, I'm just
Now you gotta keep drinking
pretty
it.
high. So I still have it.
It's pretty high.
There you
Sorry.
go.
The way you said it was funny.
Pineapple. Apple pen.
What? What?
Now you have to show them the video.
I have a pen.
Oh
I
no!
have pineapple.
Ugh.
Pineapple pen.
No,
You've seen it, right?
No, I haven't. Wait.
Wait, there's more. What were you saying, Jay?
Pineapple. Apple
What were you
pen.
saying?
I don't remember.
Are you sure you're awake?
I don't remember. Yes,
Yeah.
I think so.
No, okay, I believe you. So during the break after the intro,
Yes.
I might have to, because I took some screenshots of parts in the podcast, so I can maybe like remember, so I can mention the show. So I might have to like quickly type some out for the torturing stuff.
Okay, it's starting in 3
Notes
seconds.
for torturing. Because I have time to write that down. I just barely finished the Hatman last night before work. So
What the fuck is this guy?
fuck me sideways. Just bear with it.
It's really catchy.
I swear to God, YouTube is the worst invention ever created.
Yeah, well, I was comic books not working
Because
on.
it makes people like this famous. Wait. Dance.
That's why he's famous, because you're laughing.
He's having such a good time.
Oh,
Yep.
I don't think I've ever had that good of a time in my life. It's pretty sad.
yeah.
Can we stop this now?
Gladly. The novelty wore is off pretty fast.
What the fuck? How many views?
Wait, honey, before you say the number, are you sure you want to know? Because you keep depressing yourself when you're
Yeah, I'm ready to off myself tonight already as it is.
308 million views.
308 million?
Right up here. Oh, I just liked it.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Why can't we come up with something like this?
Because there's no substance to it, Jay. It's worse than popcorn butter.
I have an apple. No, the best was, I have a pen. I have a pen. I have a long pen. It's simplistically awesome.
It's also his excitement, the dance, his foreign, like, English breaking.
The outfit,
like,
and his dance, yeah.
Like, a long pen.
English second language kind of voice.
They made us excited about a long pen.
I mean, I wasn't.
You've seen What Does the Fox Say, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that still around?
I mean, it still exists.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Fucking A right, doggy.
Yeah. I mean, it's not famous. I mean, it's famous. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Every once in a while it gets stuck in my head.
Yeah.
Like, what's the thing right now? Yeet?
No, it's mainly just like weird TikTok stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, TikTok kind of took over.
The thing that your daughter's into.
We banned that shit from this house.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
You're
Did you catch?
amazing.
Did something happen?
No, but just...
Or was it my warning?
Yeah, it was just... I think it was just basically us talking about it. Like,
Yeah.
how horrible it is. Yeah, we banned that shit.
Okay.
Now, her friends have TikTok. See, this is her workaround, this little shit.
Well, yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah.
The friends have it.
Yeah.
So Katie will find her on her friends' TikToks.
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't have it. Yeah.
Pretty sure someone made a TikTok of me at work. No, they definitely did. When I was stuck in the box under the sink.
Nice.
I mean, that does sound kind of funny.
It is fucking hilarious.
It
That's how I
was,
picture
but
it.
I needed help up.
And
and they were just
her details.
videotaping me.
Her details worked better too.
Okay, so this is what happened. Okay, story time.
At least grab the mic while you're doing it.
Story time with Lexi, guys. Okay. So I was at work, and I was about to throw out these boxes, and I looked at this box, and I'm like, whoa. I wonder if I could fit in this box.
Recipe for success.
And I looked around, like, okay, it's slow enough. There's no one really here right now. I think I could go to the back and try to fit inside the box. Yeah. So I tell everyone, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna try to get in this box, so I'll be back shortly. So I go to the back. I stick my legs inside the box, and then I curl up. I sit inside the box. I completely fit, like, perfectly.
All right.
But it was loose. Like, the box was, like, very crooked, and it started to tilt. And I was, like, completely submerged inside this box, realizing that it was hard to stand up inside
How big was this box.
Barely big enough to fit her.
Barely big enough to fit me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So every time I moved and struggled, the box would tilt more. So obviously that made me struggle more. And the box fell over, and I was underneath the 3-compartment sink we have in the back, right next to a really smelly drain. Ooh. And thank God I had my headset on. I went over the headset. I was like, "Hey, guys, can you help me? I'm stuck in a box on the floor." Underneath the sink. So about 3 girls come back, and the first thing they do, instead of reach their arms to help me up, is they take out their phones and they start TikToking this.
Do we have this TikTok?
I don't know.
Does TikTok exist?
I'm sure it does, but I don't have TikTok and I don't follow them.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure it's out there though, because I got the Snapchats almost immediately after I got up.
Oh, we have the Snapchat of this?
I did, yeah, but it went away.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm sure someone saved it. I could ask for it.
It's a great app for cheaters.
We should see this.
Yeah.
If I could find it, I'll send you guys the link.
Lexi had a box. She had a TikTok. She has a TikTok bot. No?
Yeah, TikTok box.
TikTok box,
Does
yeah.
that work? Yeah, that works.
It works, yeah.
But you forgot the
That's part of it. Yeah.
TikTok box.
That's like the spice.
Yeah.
That's the spice in that meat, you know?
Yep.
Lexi said,
It's the oregano.
TikTok box.
Yep. But yeah, that's my story.
Great story. That was a good story.
Thank you.
That was a great story.
I would agree. Yeah. Good.
You crazy guys.
Why would you do that?
I wanted to know if I could fit, and I could. And the impulse was just so strong in that moment that I had to do it.
You know, I had that thought, like, would it hurt if I fall from this height? Doesn't mean I'm going to do it.
It consumed my brain.
Yeah.
Babe. Because I was carrying all these boxes to the back, and I just kept looking at that one box. I'm like, man, I know I could fit in there. I have to do it. And I did. And I could. And then I fell.
You came, you saw, you conquered.
Yes.
And they conquered her back.
It did.
Vice.
Nice.
See.
That's Latin. Or is it Italian?
Yes.
Duh.
I think it's kind of both, isn't it?
But sure.
Don't fucking with me.
I don't know.
Okay.
The answer is...
It's like, I feel like I need to, like, teach her about fire and stay away from the stove when it's on. Like, you know? Like, I have to see if I can stick my hand there while it's red.
Okay.
Let's do this intro. Episode 106.
Oh, God. I think it's 109.
109?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I mixed it up.
So damn paranormal.
We're not there yet.
You could just edit that in.
No, I'm not going to do that. That's a lot of work. You just do it at the right time. More work than it should be. Fucking pineapple.
Guys ready?
Yes. You seem pretty warmed up. It's been 56 minutes.
It's been an hour?
Well, since I started recording, it's been more, actually. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Everyone, final vapes?
Wow, that was a really smoky one.
Final vapes?
Fucking addicts. Oh, who am I kidding?
Oh my god. Into my brain. Into my brain. Are you going to do So Damn Paranormal?
So damn.
I mean, she has to.
Paranormal.
I'm not fucking doing it. Good. All right, ready?
There, I did it twice.
I was just going to say the best was the Skype episode.
Oh.
You're like, Lexi. So Damn Paranormal.
She was playing a fucking game. Yeah. That was great. Oh, did I tell you? Did I give you the reason why I couldn't put in my audio into it? I don't know if I told you or not. I know I said I was going to tell you.
You said, you mentioned it.
I did.
Like, hey, in case you notice. What was the
reason? I didn't tell you the reason.
No.
Okay. So the reason is because for some reason this time around my voice was in your audio file. Last time we did it, it was just your voice. So I was able to put mine in without like doubling, without two voices of different quality, like mixing together. And it sounded so bad.
Do you think I had my headphones too loud?
I don't know
And
what
it was actually picking up?
No, it sounded like... No, because you heard it. It sounded just the same as yours. Like it was a Skype call.
Yeah.
It sounded like the full Skype call. If it was like an echo or like your device picking up on my voice or something differently, it would have sounded differently. It didn't. I don't know what changed this time.
Weird.
Very weird. So I don't know. So I couldn't like perfect it like last time.
Ghosts.
It's electronics.
Ghosts in the electronics.
Ghost in the Machine.
Ghost in the Machine.
Yeah, yes. Wasn't that a 90s movie?
Machine Gun Kelly?
I think so, with MGK, as he's known in the streets. I think it was with Robert Englund. Wasn't it Ghost in the Machine?
No.
No?
Really?
He did something like that.
I haven't seen Ghost in the Machine since it came out in 99, 97, 90, whatever.
Have you seen
Yes.
The Outsider?
Yeah.
Jason Bateman.
Yeah, I have. I've seen it, all the episodes, all 6.
Us too.
Huh?
I love it. Us too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's Stephen King, right? That's right.
I love it.
Oh, it's Jonah Hill also.
Jonah
Isn't
the
it?
Ark?
Joe Hill.
Joe Hill. Whatever.
But no.
Jonah.
He's got another show out, though. Joe Hill
Hill.
has Something in the Key.
Oh,
Master in the Key or something like
yeah, it's a Netflix show. It just came
that.
out.
Katie wants to watch it.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, that's how it looked like a I don't know, it looked like a teenage
dud?
thing. No, I haven't seen it, but I'm just guessing.
Do you like The Outsider?
I really do.
I do too.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
black chick?
The who?
The black chick?
Yeah, she was nominated for 2 Oscars. You just saw her.
That was her, right?
Yeah,
With
that was her. Yeah. For best song and best
I knew
actress.
it.
Yeah.
Katie's like, no, that's not her. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
I'm
her.
telling
It's her.
you.
Cynthia Erivo. Yeah. It's funny. She blew up after she made that movie in 2018, The Bad Times at the El Royale. She was in that movie, and no one's ever heard of her. I mean, not no one. Obviously, she's been in stuff before that, but just no one recognized her yet. She wasn't big until that movie, really. And she was in that movie with a bunch of stars. There's Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Right, Jeff Bridges.
That was a good movie. I liked.
And she's a black chick in that movie. She's a singer.
Really?
And she's like really good and came out of nowhere. For me, she was it's the first time I've ever seen her in a movie. And like, damn, this actress is really good. And then I see her everywhere when she's nominated all of a sudden. I'm like, damn, people are noticing her fast.
I knew it was her. Katie's like, now I'm going to have to tell her. Yeah. But that character she plays in Outsider, do you remember her name?
No.
I don't either. But she's in a lot of Stephen King books, like recent Stephen King books.
Oh, really? Yeah. Like what?
Not
Dr. Sabe.
They're kind of like Hard-Boiled Detective.
Okay.
A 3-book series.
The same character or the same type of character?
Same character.
Oh, wow.
Same
cool.
name and everything.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. That's cool.
Oh, God. It's on the tip of my tongue. But yeah, it's the End of Watch series of books. I forgot the name of the detective.
Apple.
But yeah. So when it's on the tip of my tongue.
It's funny because the Outsider, I was going to leave it as a surprise, but that's part of my off the rails ideas because the persona of this dark figure, while it's not the hat, it resembles a lot of the people in the shadow people, which I'll get into.
Okay.
And the talks. So I was going to mention that as one of my like references.
Awesome.
There's a lot of references to this kind of stuff.
Cool.
Anyway,
but yeah, she's throughout Stephen King. So when I heard her name, I'm like, Gibney. Something Gibney.
Sure. I don't remember. I know I've just seen
the character name.
I spent the whole last week watching this episodes, but I don't remember. I'm sorry. Nancy? Yeah. I don't know.
No.
Stella. Okay, let's just start. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean, I could look it up, but there's no point. All right, let's do this in 5, 4. Yeah, I know. Fucking Christ.
3.
Hit that shit, girl.
I love blowing into the air when I can. Anyway. 3. What?
It's too much.
Too sweet? Or too much alcohol?
Now it is.
Now it is? I wonder why.
It was really good earlier, but now it's too sweet.
That's what she said. All right, 3, 2,